Let's get blasted. Let's get it twisted. Let's get it popping. Okay. Israel violates ceasefire and kills 400 as it continues its genocide. Trump Putin talks ? The reporting is around 400 during Ramadan. Yes, 400 overnight. They just basically opened up the genocide button again. It's crazy. It's pretty wild stuff. Anyway, I'll talk about that in a second. Hold on. Israel violates ceasefire, kills 400 as it continues the genocide. Trump Putin talks. Deportations. Court battle creates constitutional crisis where due process might be eliminated. Reichsburger is upon us. Burger Reich is here. Get in now. Okay, let's get it going. Let's blast off and let's do it. The astronauts are coming back today. Nice. And put we need God. God will not save us. No one will come to save us. The only people who can save us is ourselves. That is the unfortunate reality, okay? If there ever was a God, he has left mankind behind a long time ago. FY, the director and lead writer of Kingdom Come Deliverance is a Gamergate supporter. Yeah, I don't care. It's a really good game. I really like it. So it is pretty funny that he made such a banger ass game, and then because he put like one black person in the game and because he put one gay romance option in the game, everyone of his fans that he had accumulated over the years of being a Gamergate supporter, they're all mad at him now. Hold on, I'm getting confirmation. I'm getting confirmation right now from my management to see if I can play Assassin's Creed today or not. Okay. All right, let's blast off. Like I said, here it is. And Megaphonics, I don't care about the beef that you and Lolo have about season 2 of Severance. And no, I haven't watched Severance yet. I'm gonna restart it from the start. I haven't watched like the last couple of episodes of season 1, and I didn't even realize. Okay, I will watch Severance eventually. I will get to it, don't worry. Libophonics, goddamn, Severance phonics, hooked on phonics. I went viral on TikTok on Severance TikTok, so now all I talk about is Severance. And the director of Warhorse Studios is Fash. He openly collaborates with Russia and have companies to spread propaganda. KCD. Wait, what? He collaborates with Russia? What does that even mean? The game is awesome. That's all I'm saying. I don't care about who made it. I don't care about the like the person who made the product. I care about the product. Okay? And it's so funny that like people still hold on to this. No, your consumption of whichever form of art is actually dictates your morality or whatever. It's like kind of funny because like nobody believes this. Nobody cares about this. Nobody operates like this. And yet there are still liberals who are like, nah, I'm going to keep that going. I'm going to keep that shit alive, baby. I will never let that die. This is my political activism. And BDS rules don't matter then, right? Yes, dude. The comparison to a targeted, directed boycott created by a group of people that put a lot of thought and effort into an incredibly specific, incredibly centralized boycott movement against an apartheid state that is conducting a genocide is not the same as like, I don't like this video game creator, okay? That if you can't comprehend the difference between these two things, okay? I don't know what to tell you. You've been in here for 16 months. You need to stop doing this, okay? Being like, oh, dude, excuse me. I've decided personally that like the Wukong creators said some misogynistic things, so I'm doing a boycott. It's not the fucking same as like boycott, divestments, and sanctions on the state of Israel for the crime of doing a genocide, okay? Like, think about it this way. On the BDS list, you have Caterpillar. Why is Caterpillar on the BDS list? Because Caterpillar has Cat 9, which is specifically created for the IDF to bulldoze over Palestinian houses, to bulldoze over people who protest against Palestinian houses being bulldozed over, like Rachel Corrie. Please stop trivializing real political activism with like your own personal distaste for a video game developer or whatever. Okay, if it's your own personal choice, go on, king. But know that like running around as though you are the most moral, most woke person of all time because of your own personal distaste for the actions of a creator or whatever, you're so off right now. No, I'm not. There is a very obvious vision that I try to channel and try to describe at any given point. Okay? You don't have any other capacity to understand the world other than the liberal framework that you work with. The liberal framework that you work with dictates that the only thing you care about is the content that other people are consuming, and how they're consuming that content doesn't even matter. It's just that this is problematic. We're done. Okay? This is problematic. I don't want anybody to touch it. They're problematic if they consume it too. This kind of slacktivism isn't real slacktivism at all. It's not real activism at all. It's barely slacktivism. You're just being fucking annoying. You have substituted real, tangible results that people try to bring about, real change that people try to bring about through actual initiatives. BDS is organized and bigger while this one video game is small. No, there is no organized boycott against this video game. What the fuck are you talking about, dude? You just made it up in your mind. Like you've just decided that you have an issue with it. This is what I mean. This is just like the most people unironically think that just being fucking annoying is activism. It's not activism. You're just being fucking annoying. That's it. Don't try to like and don't try to personally bring this down to like or don't try to bring up your own personal distaste. Autistic chatters can't conceptualize the difference between a boycott and dislike of something. Exactly. It's so weird. This is why I always get mad at people who turn around and fucking say stuff like, oh, we're doing a general strike tomorrow. Do you have any idea how that works? No, of course you don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't just go, I found a general strike on the work free subreddit. Like, that's not how you do a general strike. You can't do a general strike like that. It's a massive, massive movement. So I'm realizing he hates his own cult. Every day there's a new absolute moron that is this like right-winger guy who has imagined that I don't have these sorts of conversations every single day in here with the hopes of steering people on the left into a direction that isn't fucking annoying, but rather productive. But because they can't comprehend that I'm having this conversation that I've had a million times over, he goes, huh, you built this cult and now you hate them. No, you fucking baboon. This is what I talk about on a daily fucking basis. You just have never encountered it. And the only thing you know of me is through clips of other people making you believe that I believe certain things. And you believe that so much that you can literally be in the chat where I am actively engaging in course correction. And then you go, ha, finally, he hates his cult. If I'm having this conversation right now, don't you think that I've had this conversation a million times over? If I'm having this conversation right now for the first time ever, what do you think is more productive? For me to have this conversation, or for you to think that you have decided that you won something here, like an argument in your mind, that you imagine that I'm just like this and my community is just like this? Crash out on using autistic as a pejorative. I don't think like that. What the fuck is wrong with you? Yo, fuckface, I'm a 5-year sub. Why are you using autistic as a pejorative? First of all, I'm a 5-year sub. I don't care how many years you've been in here. You've been in here for 5 fucking years. What are you talking about? Crash out? What is happening today? I started off 33 minutes in and we got a bunch of fucking morons in the chat. Why are you being an idiot then, bro? I'm not. I think you're the fucking idiot right now. Okay. First of all, it's my word too. Okay. I can use it if I want to. That's number one. Number two, this is the most autistic community of all time. Yourself included, clearly. What the fuck is your problem? Nah, fam. Many people agree with me. Okay, good. Go hang out with them then. You're crashing out. Let's look at the background of this chatter. 317. Change your Roblox ID. Trust me. You're crashing out, sir. I think this is another case of like a long-term community subscriber that's just like trying to get a clip out here because they've decided that they're bored with the current way that the conversation is happening. Sean Raid, new guy DLC. How the fuck do people change? Like, what happens? Try and find something, bro. KK, I will, bro. Enjoy. Yeah, you're being fucking annoying. Like, this is a shocking display, like a shocking switch up. After being in here for 44 months, being like, this is the day I've decided that you're using autism as a pejorative and not descriptive about both yourself and also members of this community. That's what I'm surprised by. I'm trying to understand like what happened in your own personal evolution. You're not only a supporter of mine, but you also support fucking Sean the Black as well. So how did this happen? You offended me. We face ableism every day. Oh, I offended you because I use autism as a terminology in my lexicon. Okay. Let me ask you something. Do you think this is a solid way to approach activism in your mind? This is why we do, okay, chatter, you're woke of the day, you know? This is precisely what I'm talking about. This is something that I yell about quite frequently. This back and forth that we have in this community is what differentiates the medium itself than in comparison to every other way of both organizing or even consuming the news, right? But in that process, there are a lot of people who come in here and masquerade as though they have valid concerns, okay? Without recognizing that sometimes there's going to be things that offend you, whether things that offend you because we're having a conversation about issues that maybe you haven't put a lot of thought or effort into, or things that offend you in terms of language that I'm using personally. Okay. Bro, I run a mutual aid network in my city. I got it, dude. I got it. I understand. You're not listening to what I'm saying though. Okay. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what you've done in the real world. You're still being fucking annoying in this situation by tone policing, as I'm actively talking about how the left should stop doing this in an effort to ensure that they can engage in an effort to engage in solidarity of any sort. This is it. This is being annoying as a substitution for thinking that you're doing activism. And it's funny that I was just talking about that. Now you're being annoying and your chat is dogpiling rather than reflecting. Why don't you reflect, chatter? Why don't you reflect? You are surrounded by autistic people in this community and they're all making fun of you for being fucking annoying. Why do you think that's the case? Is it because they have this cult-like admiration for me? Or is it because this kind of behavior is technically a narcissistic tendency masquerading as activism that is a blight on every fucking left-leaning, left-adjacent activist group of people just being like, I have my own personal issue. I think that personal issue is now going to be leading the discussion. That is not the case. That's your perception. I'm receiving whispers from people who agree with me right now. Chatter, if you thought that receiving personal whispers from other people that see your username when I pull you out here is reflective of the broader community's attitude, then you would think that this community is filled to the brim with neo-Nazis, especially considering that one of the most frequent whispers that people get in this community when they get pulled up is random schizophrenic neo-Nazis who actually fucking wait for the opportunity to go whisper people. Yes, I'm sure some people agree with you. I didn't say that there is no one in here. I'm just saying that the overwhelming majority of this community. Okay, bro, let's leave it now. Dude, I need you to not do this in your real world activism either. Okay, please don't fucking do this. Please move on from teaching this guy social skills. No, it's very important. If this guy actually does like mutual aid, runs a mutual aid network in his own fucking community, he is a community organizer that also behaves this way in the real world. That's not good. It's not a good and accurate reflection of left activism in general. This kind of shit is genuinely fucking annoying. What the fuck does Hassan even do? Nothing. I just go online and shoot the shit. That's all I do. I mean, KCD is great work, but you're running the same defense r/Kanye run on a new release of his Nazi shit. Who cares? This shit's fire, but fuck him. I didn't realize that the fucking Kingdom Come Deliverance guy was an out and about neo-Nazi, and he put swastikas prominently all over his new product. I didn't realize that this was an adequate comparison. Things have context, things have nuance. Obviously, if that was the case, if he was doing all of that shit, I wouldn't be having the same exact conversation right now. I don't know why. Yeah, we call it discriminatory behavior. No, you're not. You're not doing that. You think you're doing that. You think you're doing activism. You're not actually doing that. There is a level of permissibility in terms of the way people approach things. I make jokes about trans people here all the time as well. This is a heavily trans and queer focused community. From the outside, people with no charitability whatsoever can look in and say, wow, this guy's fucking saying a bunch of shit about trans people. What the hell is this? Right? And assume that this is an anti-trans community. They would be wrong. If someone came in here, just like you did, and said, Hassan, the way you talk about trans subjects is actually quite problematic, most trans people in this chat would start dunking on that person and make fun of them. What you're doing is exactly the same. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to change your mind anyway, but basically the reason why I do this, the reason why I sometimes will take a step back and try to explain to people like, don't do this kind of stuff, is because it's not only unproductive, it also makes you think like you're engaging in activism when you're not actually engaging in activism. You're just like have a personal distaste and have decided that that personal distaste is actually at the forefront of your anger and resentment, you know? Like, I don't think he's trying to be an activist right now. He's just being vocal about a creator he respects offending him. Yeah. Ironically enough, I had this conversation with the New Yorker magazine in the New Yorker magazine piece as well. Of course, there's going to be different boundaries for other people, right? There's going to be different boundaries for other people. This is mine. Like, I use terms like psychotic, or sometimes even say schizo, or sometimes talk about autism in general, whether it be my own personal experiences or whether it be, talking about how sometimes neurodivergent people don't have the best approach to understanding nuance, myself included. Now, having said that, if you consider that to be a boundary that you can't, see past, you're missing the forest for the trees. I still love you a lot, and I think you're a very talented propagandist. Okay, then if you think I'm a very talented propagandist, then understand that there are going to be instances where I say things that you might not immediately understand or even consider to be genuinely harmful, okay? In short, chatter, you're coming in here policing an autistic man with heavily autistic language and are claiming to be advocate for autistic people and against ableism while actually not listening to us. That's what I mean. Like, this is a community virtually entirely comprised of neurodivergent people. Many of them are autistic, okay? Like, obviously if there was a level of ableism that was, truly repulsive, the community itself would play a big role in checking that. The reason why we're even having this conversation right now is because I genuinely started today. Okay, I genuinely started this conversation today by saying, hey, leftists, don't fucking be annoying. Being annoying is not a substitute for activism. A lot of people personally think being annoying is a substitute for activism, real activism. There are a lot of things that I say that in the rear view mirror, you look back at and you understand why I carry on in the way that I do. It might not be for you in the interim. It might not be for you in the immediate moment. Okay? You might not understand it, but obviously it's the dynamic is similar to like Latinx, right? There was a time and place when everybody was like, you got to say Latinx. You can't be woke unless you say Latinx. People need to know where you stand on this. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. Why am I not going to do that? That's technically accommodating, right? It is. You're being accommodating. You're being super accommodating. Why was I not doing that? Because I'm a fucking white dude. And if I were to run around saying Latinx, every Hispanic person that I've ever encountered, both in the real world or in this community, would look at me and be like, what the fuck are you doing? Okay? Because that's just not how most people approach language. That's not how it works. And it's the same principle behind like using pejoratives or using terminology as a substitute for like stupid, or using terminology as a substitute for being crazy, right? Like, yes, these are all like pejoratives across the board are going to reflect behavior that most people look at and go, that's abnormal. You feel me? Like, in terms of the euphemism treadmill, the R word is an understandable boundary that I try not to cross. And the reason for why I try not to cross that boundary is because it is an understandable boundary that is a catch-all term that a lot of people are not just simply offended by it, but also, it's one that immediately one that immediately says, like, I'm planting my flag, I'm saying this. This is my advocacy. I'm gonna focus entirely on saying the R word. That is the hill I will die on. Like, I don't want to fucking die on that hill. It's stupid. Yeah, I mean, here, Matt Christman talked extensively on this stuff. Obviously, specifically modern disability politics. This is always a atom bomb. By the way, disability discourse brings out, I think, some of the least productive anti-solidarity conversations, but here, let's hear what he had to say.
Disability politics, Matt.
And before you say anything, Matt Christman, pre-stroke, was also still very disabled, which he will also say in a second. Like, disability doesn't always mean visible disabilities, but Matt, you could,
What do you think about modern disability politics, Matt? Well, I'll end on that one. I won't say too much. I don't want to. I mean, anyone who listens to this understands. I'm not going to get canceled. I just don't want to insult people. But I do think that a lot of disability politics is people desperately seeking a subaltern status. And I say that as somebody who is, I'm sorry, way more disabled than many of the people who I see make it the fulcrum of their political identity. And, like they pitch it as like, well, I have to be the defender, because of how of the trauma that my life has been trying to be disabled in this country. It's like, not really. And you can't argue that you're part of a community because due to the incredible variety of what it counts to be disabled, I mean, my God, by certain definitions, you could say everybody is fucking disabled in one way or another, that there is no community to speak for. I sure as shit don't feel like I'm part of some community. And yeah, it's like, it does feel like it's an online phenomenon more than any expression of the real experience of people. Like, yeah, obviously, you know, uh, capitalism is at war with anybody who is not able to fit as a cog within it. That's true. Yes, read Caliban the Witch and all that. But as with most things, the way to fight that is to fight capitalism and trying to play gotcha with people for being.
it's far too diverse and broad to be a community. Yeah, but it doesn't matter because, like, you're still a part of this community, whether you're disabled or not. Ironically enough, neurodivergence is a prominent fixture in this community, as we have done censuses on this year over year. And it's reflective of both the way that chat operates, which also obviously reflects upon the streamer and the way the streamer, me, operates. But having said that, the way I operate is not that complicated. It's like, I'm not going to cast aside coming across, like, I'm not going to cast aside like making jokes sometimes at the expense of entire subgroups that might come across as minimizing or whatever. But like, the reality of the matter is, like, you should be able to do that, especially if like everybody understands that this is not a community that's going to cast aside disabled people or not advocate for their rights. You know what I mean?
Discriminating against your disability of whichever one you have it's a recipe for the opposite of that. It's really just a way for you to be the center of attention and for you to have a.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that Matt identified and something that I identified as well many years ago, which is that the left does have a tendency to use activist language, emancipatory language specifically, to make a narcissistic desire to be heard into a political movement. And you do it more and more often. and I think it's incredibly harmful to any kind of solidarity. And I think that it plays really well in these sorts of communities. It was literally a part of the fucking CIA handbook, dude. Like when the FBI and CIA were doing COINTELPRO, they straight up created field manuals for disrupting leftist organizing. And in the fucking field manual, it straight up says, be an annoying fucking scold, okay? I'm paraphrasing, but it's straight the fuck up. Use process and be an annoying scold over and over again and rage bait to stop solidarity dead in its fucking tracks. So yeah, there is in historic left movements, there's a term for it. It's called wrecker behavior, right? That's what it is. And unfortunately, because all other expressions of radical politics have been completely fucking shut off from mainstream discourse, any kind of like Marxist politics, real labor militancy is completely stopped dead in its tracks in leftist discourse, and even on college campuses, as a matter of fact, especially because it goes against the well-established hierarchy of the ruling class dominating over the working class, that the only permissible radical politics comes from identity. This does not mean that we cast aside different identities. Okay, it's not like saying, you know, yeah, be racist. That's the whole point. You got to be racist to be working class. That's not what I'm saying at all. Okay, you can never throw that away. You can never stop advocating for other people. That's the entire purpose of leftist movements in general. But because that's the only form of radical politics that is permissible in these progressive institutions, that's the only button that people hit. Okay, the only button that people hit is just being like, yeah, I don't like this. This is problematic. You're not featuring enough BIPOC voices in this conversation. You're not doing enough for disability activism, especially when the conversation in and of itself was about solidarity, and the conversation in and of itself was about, you know, don't fucking be annoying. Don't substitute being a woke scold for, you know, for real political activism, because a chatter brought up that the BDS movement is similar in a joking manner, by the way. That person literally didn't even mean what they were saying, because they very quickly followed up and was like, I'm just being annoying, my bad, or something along those lines, when he tried to make a comparison to someone being like, Kingdom Come Deliverance is a fascist product or whatever the fuck, and acted like there was already a well-established like boycott movement against this product in and of itself, and then made a comparison to boycott, divestment, and sanctions on Israel, the BDS movement that was created by the Palestinians. There's a very carefully crafted, very directed, very directional boycott movement with like tangible results that they want out of this. In any case, here's what I wanted to show you, and this is obviously the simple sabotage field manual, and I believe it's on the 18th page, right? Yeah. Make mistakes in quantities of material when you're copying orders. Confuse similar names. Use wrong addresses. Multiply paperwork in plausible ways. Start duplicate files. It's just like using process. General interference with organizations and production. Insist on doing everything through channels. Never permit shortcuts to be taken in order to expedite decisions. Make speeches. Talk as frequently as possible and at great length. Illustrate your points by long anecdotes and accounts of personal experiences. Never hesitate to make a few appropriate patriotic comments. When possible, refer all matters to committees for further study and consideration. Attempt to make the committees as large as possible, never less than 5. Bring up irrelevant issues. Bring up irrelevant issues as frequently as possible. Haggle over precise wording of communications, minutes, resolutions. Refer back to matters decided upon at last meeting and attempt to reopen the discussion about the advisability of that decision. Like expanding on, and this will happen, for the record. Chat does this without a fucking CIA field manual. Chat does this on its own because we have this somewhat selfish tendency to refuse to analyze things, refuse to interpret things, and try to understand where someone is coming from, and then instead go, no, this is my plight, this is my cause, this is completely fucking unacceptable that you're doing this. And then we expand upon that, and then we further have a conversation. When initially the conversation itself started off by saying, don't do this, okay? Don't do this. It's annoying, and it is harmful to try to instill solidarity and try to bring people to your cause. And then in that fucking process, chat immediately started doing it, and then we doubled down on it, and now we're having a conversation about not doing this after the conversation started off with don't do this. This doesn't mean that there's no room for dissent, for the record. Of course there is. That's what makes this process more enjoyable in general. Having said that, bro, I'm very familiar with COINTELPRO. Providing training on inclusivity is not COINTELPRO. Lamau, we focus on action, not debates. I literally write everything in layman's terms and refrain from political language to attract as many people as possible. Yes, but you're coming into, once again, a heavily neurodivergent community, and policing language in a heavily neurodivergent community in a way that like the rest of the community doesn't entirely agree with you on. And you're getting your fucking notes from a couple people that you say are whispering to you and going, no, my cause is just. You're not understanding the point that I'm making if you don't understand what I'm saying here. Ironically enough, 24 people, dude, and a gifted sub. Oh my God. There is 28,000 people here. 28,112 people here right now. People jokingly gift subs to the fucking dumbass hogs that I pull up on screen as well. Does that mean that they're actually, their cause is just, or they're making a fucking coherent point that must be heard? Is that what you think it is? The reason why we had this conversation that is entirely unproductive instead of covering the news for the past 45 minutes is because I don't shy away from demonstrating how these things derail. I don't think you're going to reflect on this. No, of course I'm not going to reflect on this. I have a well-established position on it. That's what I'm trying to get across to you. And I'm saying if it's not something that is to your liking, then, you know, you're just not going to enjoy my commentary, I guess, after enjoying it for 45 months. Especially because the energy that you brought to the table was that I was crashing out. And the reason why you said this was because I was telling another chatter to stop being fucking annoying and stop being a goddamn woke scold over utterly irrelevant, nonsensical bullshit, because that makes everyone here, that makes this community and that makes left movements look undesirable, as though they are unable to entertain normal things that other people enjoy. And because there is no way to have a nuanced conversation about this shit, people will then go, well, what about this valid thing that people would get mad about? Yeah, that would be valid. Like someone compared fuck Kingdom Come Guy to Kanye West, okay? What do you mean? Stop being woke and soy, okay? Stop being woke and soy. That's what I'm going to start saying. The leftist position on this is to say you are behaving in a wrecker way. You're behaving like a wrecker, specifically to halt progress or to talk about things, like because you want to stop people from having any sort of discussion, and you want the discussion to be revolved around your own personal project here. Entirely projection from the chatter. Why are you allowing this egotistical, autistic asshole to derail the stream? This is just narcissism. I don't think this needs to be addressed for this long. But then again, I'm not a content creator. I just think kids like this don't deserve any more attention than stop being such a bitch. No, I want to, because that person is a 45-month subscriber. What do you mean? Like, and they're saying that they're a community organizer. I just don't want him to like behave like this out in the real world. You know what I mean? That's it. Bro might not be autistic. Lamau, he could be LARPing. I don't think he's LARPing that good. You know? I don't think he's LARPing that fucking good. No, that person is most likely autistic. Okay. Can record behavior be utilized correctly against the right? Yeah, but you would have to infiltrate right-wing movements and behave like a hog for an extended period of time and try to get them to engage in sectarian infighting. One version of that that's happening right now, a version of that is already happening right now within the right is the anti-Semitic right versus the anti-Semitic right that doesn't want to openly say that they're anti-Semitic. That's it. The anti-Semitic right that likes Israel versus the anti-Semitic right that doesn't like Israel. And they're kind of quietly fighting in the background right now. That's the hot button sectarian infighting occurring in the right. I'm autistic and I understand the point you're saying. It hurts a bit. It doesn't get in the way of the larger picture. Why do all dumb people equate anti-Semitism to anti-Israel? Because all the quote unquote smart people do that as well, actively, which is why it turns into a much larger issue. People respond to what they hear from both a neo-Nazi like Nick Fuentes and also a guy like Jake Tapper. You know, if the liberals in mainstream media are basically saying dual loyalty but wokely, and then the reactionaries and independent media are saying dual loyalty but not wokely, then the entire marketplace is captured by dual loyalty, both wokely and not wokely. Okay? The woke dual loyalty narrative is the idea that, like, if you criticize Israel, then you're fucking anti-Semitic because all Jews are Zionists, and that's like well-established fact. The reactionary way to do that trope is to basically say all Jews love Israel, and that's all they care about, and that's why it's bad, because what Israel is doing is bad. Which one do you think is going to win out in that conversation? Which attitude is going to be more, like, which attitude is going to be more successful in penetrating collective consciousness? I think it's the second one, because most people at the end of the day see what Israel's doing and go, that's fucking horrifying. I don't like that at all. Even if I don't like Muslims, I still don't like what the fuck they're doing. Austin Show acts like he's woke scolded. He's been woke scolded one too many times by how we backtrack so much. It's hilarious. It makes for great podcast material. Yeah, that's the beauty of the joke. Exactly. That's us making a joke about, like, that's the joke. Thank you. Exactly. You're literally just as toxic as your audience. You curate this audience with your behavior. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Using the term autistic as an insult is so fucked up. You're super toxic in that regard. You're one of the worst people when it comes to weaponizing mental health and medical conditions. Yes, dude. I am the worst person in terms of that. You are correct. Fuck it. I'm just the worst person in general. I'm the most racist person. I'm the most ableist person. Bro, it's so funny because, like, just click on any other content creator on this platform right now. Any of the top English speaking content creators right now, they're slinging the fucking R word like nonstop. Okay? Like, what happens when you encounter any other community that's not, like, heavily fucking moderated? What happens? Do you just perish? Does your brain fucking explode? You're manipulating. You are manipulating, not you're manipulating. So what? So because there's something worse makes my behavior okay? No, your behavior is not okay because you said something insane. You literally said, I am one of the worst people when it comes to weaponizing mental health and medical conditions, which is an insane statement to make. I said that it is entirely normalized to say way, way, way more ableist shit without even a second consideration for it in most communities. And you came in, and when I directed that, when I established that your premise was faulty and said you're wrong and here is why, you turn around and go, oh, well, okay, just because there's other people that are out there that are worse doesn't mean it's okay. No, you're moving away from the main point that you made. You said I was one of the worst people. I said there are infinitely worse, more ableist content creators out there that think that we're incredibly woke and incredibly annoying. Then you turned around and acted like I didn't make that point and said, taking accountability for your own faults is not your strong suit. Now you're moving on to an entirely different conversation. We have a disagreement here. You will never understand it, I don't think. That's it. Look at this. It was a self-aware autistic chatter who used the term to describe chat. You just read the comment out loud. The narcissists are truly out in full blast today? Yes. Yeah. Is all this hate today trying to get you to avoid talking about Israel? No, it's not. I think these people would probably quiet down if I moved on to talk about Israel. The reality of the matter is that these people just want to fucking have me respond to them. That's it. It's the same reason. It's actually, ironically, a much better way to derail the stream, really. It's fucking annoying, but it's much better way to derail the stream than coming in here and LARPing as a hog and being like, I'm going to fucking shoot you in the head when I see you out and about, right? because the principle is the same. The reason why you're saying this is the exact same. You want recognition. You want someone to reach out to you. You want someone to respond to you, right? This is a person that truly cares about this. Look, he said it again. I can't stand to see you always weaponize mental health on your platform. And now I'm rewarding it, which is why more people are coming out of the woodwork. So we're going to move on from this. And we're going to get to the actual news. After an entire hour of this completely unproductive back and forth, we have now moved on. We are officially moving on. If you try to come back to it, if you try to bring this back, it's not going to happen. Chat can't act like this. Content has no value. Just learned about a CIA left book sabotage handbook. Yeah, I mean, I try to use this as a educational moment because I do think it's important. I do think it's important to bring this back every now and again because I want people to not behave like this. I will never be able to stop people from behaving like this because they're so used to doing it. I just want others to understand that this is not a community where you can do that, which is why so many dumb fucks come in here and go, seems like the cult is eating you alive. It's like, bitch, I've been saying these exact same things for the past fucking decade. It's not about avoiding accountability. It's about my vision, okay? If I were to listen to people that are incredibly sensitive about what kind of content or what kind of commentary I engage in, you think they didn't, you think that people weren't chiming in the same exact way when I had 35 people in here? Of course they were. That's the one thing that the left knows how to do, right? That's it. The one thing that the left knows how to do is like try to actively gatekeep, make it seem like this is some hipster position. God forbid we actually have a broad, expansive movement of people that are at least like-minded, or at least recognize their class position. God forbid, that would be terrifying. So we have to do everything we can to be as annoying as fucking possible and try to stop getting people on board. Just because they disagree with you, they're from the left. Gotcha. The left, lol. Maybe you are wrong. I don't know. I think you're too stupid to make a coherent point. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, this is a leftist community. And I was having a conversation about cancel culture and purity testing and how stupid it is. And I think, demonstrated why it was stupid. All right.
Good evening.
Putin, Adolf Hitler, had a conversation with Donald Trump. Let's take a look at how that went on.
A much trailed phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. It seems a number of issues were discussed, but a ceasefire with Ukraine remains to be agreed. The White House says good progress was made, and a Kremlin official even said the world had become a much safer place today. So what exactly was agreed in that 90-minute phone conversation? Well, Vladimir Putin ordered his forces not to attack energy infrastructure as part of a mutual 30-day limited agreement with Ukraine. They also discussed a potential maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea as part of that deal. Russia and Ukraine agreed to engage in a prisoner swap tomorrow, where each side would return 175 people. The Russian President Putin said he would also hand over 23 wounded Ukrainian servicemen as a gesture of goodwill. But the Russian president has a list of conditions, including that the West halts foreign military aid and intelligence information to Ukraine. Donald Trump also supported Vladimir Putin's idea to organize an ice hockey match between Russian and American players. Well, our U.S. correspondent...
That's so fun, dude. That is Donald Trump. Donald Trump lives in the universe of movies. He is so perfect for America. He is such a perfect American president. That's incredible. That is incredible. This is movie mindset, dude. Straight up. He's like, yes, we should do boxing afterwards. Bring your best boxer. We'll put him up against one of our best boxers. That's right.
James Matthews is at the White House. But first, let's speak to our Moscow correspondent, Ivor Bennett. Good evening, Ivor. So a limited ceasefire when it comes to energy and infrastructure, but really President Putin reaffirming those conditions.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. So they have, as you say, agreed some kind of ceasefire, but it's nowhere near the ceasefire that was initially discussed and what was principally the aim of this call. Donald Trump wanted Vladimir Putin to sign up to this immediate 30-day truce along the front lines, which Ukraine accepted this time last week. It's taken them this long to get down to it, but what we've got instead is a much lighter version, a ceasefire whereby Russia and Ukraine have both agreed not to strike one another's energy infrastructure, and we're told by the Kremlin that Vladimir Putin has given the necessary military order for that to happen. And I think that's because Vladimir Putin had a bit of a balancing act with this phone call. He didn't want to upset Donald Trump, of course. He didn't want to incur his wrath because Russia has a lot to gain from better relations with Washington. There is talk in the last month of potentially the US lifting sanctions on Russia, readmitting them to the G7 to make it the G8 again, a reset of relations. That is what Vladimir Putin wants. So he had to give him something. But at the same time, he wanted to emerge from this call with Russia's red lines still intact. He didn't want to give any ground on his maximalist positions. And it seems like he hasn't, because in the Kremlin's communique, there is quite a telling line, which is a bit of a refrain from Moscow. He said that, or the Kremlin said, the Russian president declared his readiness to thoroughly work out possible ways of settlement together with his American partners, which take into account the absolute need to eliminate the root causes of the crisis.
Kremlin readout of the call is different than the White House one. The White House one didn't mention end of foreign aid. Quick breakdown of the Kremlin readout of Trump's call with Putin. It doesn't look like Putin is prepared to give any ground on his maximalist positions. Putin stresses that Russia's key condition to stop a conflict from escalating and moving towards a settlement would be a total end of foreign military support and intelligence sharing with Kyiv. Ukraine thinks that any deal like this would leave it vulnerable to future attack. Understandably, they feel this way. There's no indication that Putin has dropped any of his maximalist goals. Any deal must take into account the unconditional necessity to remove the initial reasons for the crisis and Russia's legal security interests. That means effectively ending Ukraine's independence and post-Cold War security architecture in Europe. Putin hasn't agreed to Trump's proposal for a 30-day unconditional ceasefire, which Ukraine has. Instead, he pointed to a series of significant issues about how a ceasefire would be enforced and serious risks about whether Ukraine would adhere to it. Dude, I think I have something to say that I don't think anybody's going to like. I think that America's time as the global hegemonic power is coming to a fucking close, and both our allies and our adversaries are noticing the lack of motion that we have on the global stage and basically saying, what the fuck are you going to do about it? Oh, really? Oh, really? It is kind of Jover. It's kind of Jover, like big time Jover. No more credibility at the global stage. And while we're doing that, while that's happening, we just like our inability to recognize that is making us more angry, more resentful. And Trump's way of getting out of this rut is basically to just tack the remaining allies that we have. Weirdly enough, it just doesn't make any sense. Hey, come on, man. What about all the tech stuff we have? We're 99% ahead in tech. All the world's biggest companies that people use are here. No, first of all, MindDrive, LibDrive, China. One word, China. Secondly, even if we are dominating in the tech field, and we are certainly dominating in certain aspects of tech, like America is still an industry leader in key sectors. That's not wrong. It doesn't matter. It's no longer the singular hegemonic power player. That's simply what I'm talking about. And a big part of why we're no longer the hegemonic power player, even in the field, in like tech or commodities, consumer products, things, services, is also because of a deep focus on short-term profit seeking. Like short-term profit seeking also creates a negative incentive structure where many of these corporations only care about their quarterly earnings reports and how their actions reflect on the stock price in general. And that also is putting America behind global competition coming from China. It is a very interesting predicament. But what I'm talking about here is foreign policy. I'm not even talking about like tech leadership. I'm talking specifically about America and the way that America used to operate. Our allies like Israel and our adversaries like Russia are taking note of the little power that the United States of America has, as long as they have the backing of a very powerful global competitor like China. Even if China itself, with respect to Russia, even if China itself is not an active participant in the same way that like America is with Ukraine, the fact that China is now seen as a global competitor that can still keep you going no matter what you do, as you are attacking a foreign nation. The fact that China exists out there in the periphery and can say like, look, we're not fully on board with everything that Russia is doing, but like we're kind of on board with it. You know what I mean? We're just going to let them do whatever they want to do, which is kind of the Chinese position at this point, right? If that alone is enough for Russia to be able to resist American dominance, if that alone is enough for Russia to say like, yeah, we're going to get all of our maximalist positions that we won over in the battlefield, that's a terrifying prospect for America enjoyers, I think. For those who have enjoyed the age of America. Is skipping again? Hold on, I'm going to do something real quick. It's going to skip a lot. Okay. It should be good now. No, I know. I did that on purpose. Calm down. I did that on purpose. I tried to fix the ingest with the hopes that like I try to skip the ingest, fix the ingest with the hopes that like the skipping goes away, because I think that it's happening at the server side, not on the Twitch server, but my cloud server that I run this stream off of. But let's get back to this conversation.
That is a phrase we've heard a lot in the past week or so, because when Vladimir Putin talks about root causes, in his eyes, that is NATO's eastward expansion. It's essentially Kremlin code for saying that our security concerns need to be met, and for Ukraine never to join NATO. And I think he was probably also talking there about Russia's desire not to have any foreign troops there, any troops from NATO countries acting as peacekeepers. So it seems like Russia's red lines are intact. And the reason why Vladimir Putin is so reluctant to sign up to a straight ceasefire, of course, is because he feels he doesn't have to, whilst they have the military advantage. The longer talk.
Yeah, Putin made Trump wait for the call. Classic power move. Putin is meant to be seeking the Trump around now, but he's talking to a room full of oligarchs instead. Instead, if he's going to be late, Putin waves off the question. Asked if he's going to be late, Putin waves off the question and says not to listen to his spokesman. I'm willing, by the way, questions like that with Vladimir Putin are asked ahead of time, okay? That is a carefully crafted question coming from a spokesman who asked that question not as like a polite conversation or on accident. That was deliberate. The reason why he had his spokesman ask that question is because of the same reason why he was late to the conversation. Is deliberate. And no, when it comes to diplomacy, it's not dumb alpha shit. Are you kidding me? No, there's a difference. Dumb alpha shit is entirely different when we're talking about global diplomacy. The reason why he's doing that is to say, I hold the cards, you don't, to Donald Trump. No, this is a part of diplomacy. He is not just aura farming or clip farming or being like an alpha bro or whatever. He is saying to Donald Trump, you look weak. You are weaker. You have to entertain, because you came out and you said, I'm going to end the war in Ukraine in a day, like an idiot, and then actively undermined Zelensky, actively undermined the Ukrainian position, even went as far as like refusing to do intelligence sharing for an extended period of time with Ukraine. You set yourself up for this. You are reliant on me coming to the table and conceding to any demands that you make. And if I have demands of my own, you have to concede on that side, because you've made assurances to your audience, to your voters, that, you know, you've made assurances to your audience and your voters that you were going to end this. So now the ball's in my court. By this count and the timing the Kremlin announced earlier, Putin was 1 hour late to his call. 1 hour late. He made Donald Trump wait for an hour. He made America wait for 60 whole minutes, dude. Are you crazy? Yeah. You look at that and you think, oh, that's like alpha behavior or whatever. He's just trying to be like alpha. It's like silly. It's silliness. And in any other circumstance, you're right. In diplomacy, you're not right. Putin, let's continue. Putin did agree to Trump's proposal for a moratorium on strikes on energy infrastructure and a maritime security initiative in the Black Sea. But Ukraine and Russia have reached agreements on that before, even though they've broken down. Ukraine is just one topic amid Russia's broader goal of normalizing relations with the U.S. They discussed a broad spectrum of directions where the U.S. and Russia could cooperate further, including mutually beneficial partnership in economics and energy. Russia and the U.S. will work together on other issues like the Middle East. There will be joint efforts to stabilize the situation in crisis zones, as well as establishing cooperation on nuclear non-proliferation and global security. The U.S. and Russia are going to host hockey matches, the NHL and KHL players. That would do a lot to end Russia's sporting isolation after invading Ukraine. Incredible. He's getting bitched at, straight up. Art of the deal, baby. Vladimir Putin's going to turn around and be like, have you said thank you once? Vladimir Putin's going to turn around and have, I don't know, some national news broadcaster dress down Trump in the same way that, like, Trump had Marjorie Titan Greene's boyfriend yell at Zelensky. Then turn around and say, have you said thank you once? Suka blyat, have you said thank you once? Davai. Anyway. Let's get
Talks
back to
go
it.
on before a ceasefire.
White House readout says they agreed Iran should never have the ability to destroy Israel. Yeah, that's a dramatically different way to approach this. Russia and U.S. will work together on issues like the Middle East. There will be joint efforts to stabilize the situation on nuclear non-proliferation. Okay? White House's attitude on that same conversation is, they said they would destroy Iran. Yeah, he's going to have Lukashenko behave like his J.D. Vance. Yeah. The leader spoke broadly about the Middle East and region's potential cooperation to prevent future conflicts. They further discussed the need to stop proliferation of strategic weapons and will engage with others to ensure the broadest possible application. The two leaders shared the view that Iran should never be in a position to destroy Israel. This is some crazy stuff, man. So I guess Iran is getting that nuclear program after all. Who knows? Who knows?
The more gains Russia makes, and particularly in Russia's Kursk region, where it seems like Ukraine's incursion there is all but over. I think Vladimir Putin is very keen to get that secured and get that wrapped up before there's any kind of pause in the fighting. So I'd say that the Kremlin would be very pleased with the outcome of this call.
Because in effect, President Putin now has a little more room.
Yeah, these guys saying that, like, these guys saying that Iran nuclear proliferation must not happen basically means like the nuclear arms race is on the one hand, Russia potentially giving nukes to Iran, and then America giving nukes to Saudi Arabia. Fucking awesome, dude.
To carry on this war.
Yeah, I think so. There's room to manoeuvre, clearly. Yes, there's no strikes on military infrastructure, but the key thing right now, the key goal for Moscow is totally expelling
what happened with Charlie Kirk?
The Ukrainian forces from the Kursk region. That was hugely embarrassing when that started at the beginning of August, that cross-border assault. It took the Kremlin and Vladimir Putin by surprise, and it's hugely embarrassing that it's gone on this long. Now that victory is in his sights there, he wants to kind of make Russia all Russian again. He doesn't want to let up, and he was in the Kursk region last week, dressed in military fatigues, as you can see. That was a very symbolic visit, and I think it really sent a message to Washington and Ukraine that he doesn't want to give up his military advantage, because he fears, of course, any pause in the fighting will allow the Ukrainians to rearm and regroup, and he fears he might lose that advantage. This is a way of giving himself that room to maneuver on the battlefield, and that could happen within days that the Ukrainian forces are completely expelled. So I'd say it's a bit of a fudge here, a ceasefire light, nowhere near the ceasefire that was initially touted and agreed last week with the Ukrainians and the US.
Ivor, thank you very much. Let's go to James Matthews in Washington. And James, I suppose what President Trump can claim is that things are progressing.
Yeah, and you know what? He can make these claims because the Russians have given him that opportunity. Look at the dressing around this deal, the hockey match between Russian players and American players. That will speak to Trump. He likes to talk sport. He likes to sell sport. And Americans, many in this country, care more about ice hockey, frankly, than they do about a war far away that they don't think affects them. The prisoner exchange, you can bet that Donald Trump will headline that as an achievement of his. So, you know, there is the dressing that allows Donald Trump to style himself as the artist of the deal, if you like. But I think he's been outboxed in this particular set of circumstances. If you look at the guts of this, I mean, key phrases jump out. Ivor talking there about the root causes and how Putin is ring fencing what he sees as the root causes of all this. The root cause and the roots of this are that Putin thinks Ukraine belongs to Russia. Talk about the root causes. You talk about disarming Ukraine and essentially giving Putin the territorial advantage that he wants long term. So I can't see Ukraine agreeing to anything with regard to that. But more than that, there is the key line about American and presumably European assistance to Ukraine in terms of weapon supply and intelligence supply. Putin wants that to stop, a complete cessation he speaks about. So the scenario being presented by Putin is for Ukraine basically to stop having fresh weaponry, to do nothing, to be weakened during the period of any ceasefire, whilst, of course, at the same time, Russia can arm itself and rearm to the teeth, therefore strengthening its position during a ceasefire. And of course, if the ceasefire results, if that breaks down, then you have a strengthened Putin, whilst Ukraine has been playing the gentleman's game and is left far weaker. So I think in Ukraine and in European capitals, they are looking at this through their fingers and praying that Donald Trump doesn't find a television camera anytime soon and say that is a deal worth signing, because I think that is a scenario whereby Europe and Ukraine have to turn to Donald Trump and say we simply cannot accept this. There are red lines drawn by Vladimir Putin through this agreement, really unacceptable to us. So I think we're at, you know, there have been crisis points, have there not, throughout this whole episode. I think we've reached another one here.
A ceasefire, which held for the best part of 2 months, in warning. Israel says that it targeted Hamas officials and infrastructure, but our teams filmed children among the dead and wounded. Many of the images are too graphic to show. This is one of the single deadliest days in Gaza during the war. Bodies were laid outside Gaza hospitals. Hospitals that were mostly destroyed during the war and are struggling to cope again.
So just utter
Sorry.
carnage and destruction overnight. I was here in Gaza a year ago during the peak of the fighting in Khan Yunis, and the mass casualties back then looked exactly like the mass casualty that I saw today.
The Israeli airstrikes began shortly after 2 a.m., wave after wave across Gaza, and then backed up by tank artillery and fire from naval ships off the coast.
We were sleeping when suddenly, like a volcanic eruption, the strikes rained down, taking out children.
The Israeli airstrikes and the number of dead continued to rise through the day. During the ceasefire, Gazans had started to rebuild what was left of their lives after more than 15 months of war. But many feared that this moment was inevitable. Israel has issued evacuation orders for parts of Gaza. Palestinians who'd returned home in recent weeks are now being forced back to humanitarian zones. It is perhaps a prelude to a ground invasion. Benjamin Netanyahu met with his key security officials hours after he gave the orders to resume the war. Outside the Israeli parliament, an anti-government protest.
Yeah, there's already an anti-government protest that was launching against Netanyahu. Netanyahu had some internal drama with the head of the Shin Bet. He fired the head of the Shin Bet, and yesterday he was supposed to have he was supposed to be called in to answer. There was an inquiry related to why he fired the head of the Shin Bet, and of course, you know, classic Netanyahu, only one speed, turned around and used this as an opportunity, used punishing innocent Gazans as an opportunity to move the conversation away from, is it effing again a lot? I don't know why it's just happening. I'm gonna have to see. Don't worry, I'll figure it out. All right. Anyway, basically, this is a win-win for him, where all the conversations stop because everybody has to stop because all of a sudden the war is back on, right? The war. It's not a war, it's a genocide. No more inquiries about why he fired the Shin Bet guy. No more, and now he can bring back Itamar Ben-Gvir to the coalition as well to get more support from the far right, even further right in Israel. It's a fantastic opportunity for him.
Protests gathered to oppose the airstrikes. 59 hostages remain in Gaza, 24 of them thought to be alive. Renewed fighting could put their lives at risk.
I think nothing good will come from renewing the war and the fight. Not for the innocent people living in Gaza, not for the hostages there under the tunnel.
Many Israelis believe that Netanyahu has deliberately collapsed the ceasefire for his own political survival and to ensure that his coalition remains intact.
This protest is pretty small, let's be honest, maybe 100 people or so. And it's hard to say whether or not the views expressed here reflect the majority of Israeli views. But a lot of people in Israel, it's safe to say, are quite skeptical about the reasons Israel is returning to fighting.
Hamas hasn't yet carried out counterattacks against Israel. They say they're working with mediators to prevent an escalation. But Israel has said it is ready to increase its attacks, and for now, they have the White House's backing.
The end of the ceasefire in Gaza. Israel launched extensive strikes across the Gaza Strip overnight. Chief Global Affairs anchor Martha Raddatz is tracking the latest from Washington. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, George. There had been hope for the release of the remaining hostages, hope that the ceasefire could hold. But this morning, make no mistake, a major Israeli assault on Hamas is once again underway.
Yeah, major Israeli assault on Hamas. What an incredible way to frame Israel's genocide over and over and over again. It is always the same. This is why I think Western outlets are also morally culpable for the continuation of this genocide. They are misinforming their audiences deliberately. Okay? 400 plus dead, killed. 400 plus killed, majority women and children. 180 plus children. And these guys are like, oh yeah, it's an assault on Hamas. And then when you question them, when you're like, what do you mean it's an assault on Hamas? It's just like mostly women and children they killed. They'll turn around and say, oh, it's because Hamas is hiding under children, hiding under kids. You're using kids as human shields. An insane concept that is always unaddressed. Like, what do you mean? And what's interesting about it is that while some on the Israeli side are disputing the numbers immediately and saying 400, that's a lie, Israel's own outlets are claiming that they killed 400 enemy combatants. So they actually don't dispute the number of the dead. They just say they're all enemy combatants. Israel claims to have killed a handful of mid-level administrative officials in Gaza, not even combatants. In last night's massacre that killed over 400 people, at least 73% of those killed were women and children or the elderly. There is no justification, no conceivable rationale for this scale of slaughter, especially when Israel agreed to and signed a ceasefire deal that would see all the hostages released, and Hamas has already agreed to relinquish governing authority in Gaza. But of course, it's not about Hamas or the hostages in it. That should be clear at this point. Reminder, as the governing body in Gaza, Hamas has both the political and military wings, civilians and combatants, but Israel considers anyone on the public payroll in Gaza to be legitimate targets, from municipality officials to hospital administrators to street cleaners. Absurd. Yeah. There's a civilian police force. They've executed members of the civilian police force for the crime of actually organizing and bringing about some order to the humanitarian aid drops. They did that the day after People were receiving humanitarian aid, the limited amount that was entering into Gaza, in a single file line. Hamas, they're all Hamas. Source, I don't know, go F yourself. They killed Abu Hamza, Hamas spokesperson? No, he wasn't a Hamas spokesperson. Abu Ubaidah is the Hamas spokesperson. The person that they killed is Abu Hamza, who is a Palestinian Islamic Jihad spokesperson. Yeah. They used the ceasefire to make lists of the children and relatives of anyone who posted about the genocide on Twitter. Now they're executing every one of them, says Izzy. Israel killed my sister and her children tonight, along with her entire family. Israel may kill us at will, burn us alive, and tear us apart, but it will never succeed in uprooting us from our land, says Rami Abdul. Justice and accountability await no matter how long it takes. Okay, I agree with you 100%, but couldn't Hamas just release all the hostages so Israel does not have that defense anymore? What are we talking about? What do you mean Israel doesn't have that defense anymore? Israel doesn't need any defense. It's doing a genocide right now. It's doing a genocide in spite of the fact that there are literally already hostages, Israeli hostages, inside of Gaza. Israel doesn't care about those hostages. That is a ridiculous assessment to make. What leads you to believe that Israel cares about the hostages? They're killing the hostages themselves. They're starving the hostages themselves by refusing to let in humanitarian aid. Israel is killing its own hostages, sometimes directly with small arms fire, as they did to the 3 hostages that were waving the white flag. And other times they're, bombing them. They've done this consistently. YouTuber Swiftor found 3 hours ago that his cousin's family was killed by Israel. Oh my God. The quicker people recognize that Israel's ultimate goal here is genocide, the easier this conversation will be for many of you. I think a lot of people still don't want to believe that America's close ally would ever be so openly, so actively doing an ethnic cleansing campaign, It's just, that's the reason why you ask these questions where you're like, I don't understand. Hamas said that they would release all the hostages on October 9th. They said they would release all of the hostages on October 9th, 2023, as long as Israel basically followed the current ceasefire, 3-phase ceasefire proposal. They had a hard line that was not dissimilar to the current ceasefire proposal that has been, that was supposed to be implemented. Now Yemen is saying that there are no more red lines. Sayed Abdul Malik al-Houthi has just declared in a televised speech that there are no red lines anymore, that Israel has crossed every boundary imaginable, and that Yemen will resume operations at the highest level of escalation to support the Palestinian people. Considering that they've been able to successfully penetrate the Israeli security boundary by sending in loiter munitions and even sending hypersonic missiles, I suspect that means that they're going to start dumping payload into Israel proper. Oh, I don't know where this goes, I mean, I do know where this goes. The reality of the matter is, if Israel continues doing this, it eventually is going to implode due to the stress being put upon it from other regional actors. That's where it's going towards. That's where it's heading towards. And for the record, ballistic missiles from Yemen have already been launched in close vicinity towards Israel's Dimona nuclear reactor. The missiles were all intercepted, and yet the air raid sirens were activated as a consequence of this. And this happened earlier this morning, so last night for them. It quite literally is. I mean, fascism and fascist ideology is a suicide cult. It cannot stand due to the glaringly obvious contradictions presented within it. Fascist ideology inevitably dies because it cannot be maintained. There's always an outgroup that you have to dominate. And when you eliminate the entirety of the outgroup, then you look within to dominate and make the group smaller and smaller and smaller, excising those who are on the outs of the newly formed, even smaller in-group. It's impossible to continue. It's impossible to continue behaving in a fascist way, even without resistance. I would go so far as to say that neoliberalism, without any sort of resistance, ideological resistance on the global stage from communism, in the aftermath of the USSR's dissolution, has led to America and the state of affairs now, income inequality that has grown overwhelmingly over the period of the past 3 decades at this point. America is also falling. as a consequence of not having any sort of global competitors. America is failing because of its own success. And the same goes for Israel, whether it is Yemen resisting or ascetic groups in the region that are resisting against Israel's genocide and American imperial ambition. Without them or with them, Israel inevitably will fall apart due to its undying loyalty to implementing this fascist ideology. And that's where we're at. From an Israeli Telegram news channel with 66,000 subscribers, a Gazan girl who tried to be like Sinwar eliminated today. Notice the reactions. If this is the attitude that people have towards a little child that they eliminated with American weapons, I mean, this is a deep moral rot at the heart of Israeli society that will, it's just not healthy. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just not sustainable. Times of Israel correspondent says that the first strike from Yemen to Israel since January 18th, which goes to show that the Houthis are following the ceasefire. Yes, a ballistic missile launched at Israel by the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen was successfully intercepted by air defenses. There are no reports of injuries or damage in the attack. The IDF says the missile was shot down before crossing the country's borders. Sirens have sounded in Beersheba, Dimona, and numerous other towns in southern Israel. It marks the first Houthi attack on Israel since January 18th, right before the ceasefire took effect in the Gaza Strip. As in, Yemen 100% was following through on the conditions of the ceasefire. As a matter of fact, if you were watching closely, and you're never going to hear like Yemeni spokespersons on Western news, because it's important to keep repeating the lie that they are, these barbaric monsters who are just operating on anti-Semitism, and that's it. And also, don't ban all these people that say stupid shit, mods. Palestine always attacks, then Israel attacks back as genocide. Hassan is a terrorist, says Necrosaro710. It's interesting because Palestine did not attack Israel at all. As a matter of fact, Israel was the serial violator of the ceasefire. This entire first phase of the ceasefire, Israel is the one that actually violated the ceasefire deliberately over and over and over again. And there was no response from any sort of Palestinian resistance whatsoever because they wanted the ceasefire to hold. And now Israel's decided it's over anyway. There's never been a moment where Israel has actually maintained a ceasefire. Just because you don't hear about it in this side of the planet doesn't mean that it's not happening. Okay? I never understood why other Arab countries take initiative in defending Palestine. Aren't Muslims supposed to be brothers and all that? They have nothing. They have security contracts and also have their own domestic affairs to worry about. And they know that they can't do any sort of security. They can't do any sort of security whatsoever and maintain their dominance if they don't get a steady flow of American weapons. That's why so many of the Gulf states have set aside either private security cooperation agreements with Israel or openly done it with the Abraham Accords. The Iran-backed group had threatened to resume its attacks on Israel last week. The reason why the Iran-backed group, the Houthis, the Ansar Allah movement, the reason why they said that they would restart their attacks against ships, like they restart the blockade, okay, was specifically because, oh, there it is. All right. The reason why they said they would restart the blockade in the Red Sea was specifically because Israel had denied humanitarian aid from going into Gaza last week, which is a direct violation of the ceasefire conditions. Israel never stopped violating the ceasefire conditions, but they certainly moved in that direction heavily. You mean the Lufis? How are you? Oh my God, 7-month subscriber. Oh my God. Yes, dude, that's what I mean. The Lufis, okay? The Lufis, yes. That's what I mean. The Ansar Allah movement, one of the only regional actors that actually is trying to do something, anything, with the limited amount of power and resources that they have to try to make Israel incur some semblance of punishment or penalty, the worst crime imaginable, which is a crime of genocide, okay? They have a coastline that they understand. They have a coastline and a direct access and entry point into the Red Sea that they're understandably saying that they're going to defend, you know? Yes, they are morally correct in this process. That might frustrate you. That might upset you. Maybe you should do some re-examination of, your own personal worldview in this process. They've been breaking the ceasefire conditions tenfold since the beginning. How many fucking food trucks, how many supplies? They haven't given them shit. You treat them like animals. Do people in Israel genuinely believe they're killing Hamas and not just blowing up babies? No, they know they're blowing up babies. They don't care. They like it. You know, there are definitely a non-insignificant amount of the Israeli population that likes it, straight up. There's so much indoctrination that goes into it, and it's very successful, and there's a decent amount of people who legitimately like that. And it's not like they shelter you from their opinion. I mean, here, it's the age-old adage from DKL Marxist. Translating an Israeli tweet from Hebrew is like discovering a lost page of the Mein Kampf. Let's hit translate post on this from Ayala Hassan. Bogi Yaolon doesn't want the IDF to kill babies and women in Gaza. What's wrong with him? Shame on you, Boogie. There's a country here. For those who didn't understand either maliciously or innocently, the wording wasn't a hit. My words, as the majority understood, referred to an interview with Boogie in which he claimed that he did not want the state of Israel to send the IDF to kill innocent people. This is a lie and a plot. The state of Israel has not sent and will not send the IDF to kill, God forbid, babies and women. After getting some pushback, she turned around and was like, oh, that's not correct. That's not, they don't do that. Except they do. Like I said, they don't shelter you from their perspective with regular frequency, where they'll say, well, those babies were going to grow up to be Arab Hamas militants. That's it. And yes, this is why, as I always say, Israeli media is generally more honest about the brutality of the war that they're waging, the genocide that they're conducting, that they don't call a genocide, but the war that they're waging, because their readers don't care about civilian deaths, because their readers are already locked in. There's a reason why the New York Times and Western media outlets will play a different song and dance from Israel killing more terrorists. Hopefully they clap some more Houthis also. Poggies. Pathetic. Poggies. Imagine saying poggies about genocide, dude. What a pathetic individual you must be. Oh, poggies, more genocide, please. Like, we've completely devolved as a society. It's just like, I don't even know what to say about this. What? I'm just going to assume that this is not the right time again. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Nice Twitch partner, dude. Love seeing people with not even a shred of decency, where they're just like, yeah, I'm looking at the situation and I'm liking what I'm seeing, dude. Awesome.
This morning, the tenuous ceasefire between Israel and Hamas over. Israel launching a wave of deadly airstrikes across the Gaza.
Why are people supporting genocide? Because they're Nazis, dude. This guy literally is going, Holocaust, poggies. That's what he's doing right here, okay? They like it. It's that simple. They like that shit, you know? What else can I say? They're cowardly. They don't have any power. They recognize their powerlessness. So they hope that this is a reflection of like the power that America might have, you know, on the global stage. The power that Israel might have as an extension of America on the global stage, to be like, yeah, we're really sticking it to them. You're not. Like, being openly gleeful at mass murder of babies, you are not a normal person. You are a depraved person. You have lost your humanity. You have dehumanized yourself. Okay? You have lost your humanity. You will never understand it. It sucks.
Gaza Strip.
Babies, Lamau? Yes, babies, dumb fuck. 180 children were slaughtered last night by American-made bombs and weapons that Israel directed. Yes, babies. I don't understand this attitude that people have. Like, it's very shocking. It's very shocking. 180 children were slaughtered out of the 400. 73% of the 400 plus people that Israel killed yesterday were women, children, and the elderly. 180 of them were elderly. Don't try to cowardly get away from it by saying only babies. No, they didn't only kill babies. How many baby killings is it appropriate for you? How many babies does Israel get to kill before you go, maybe it's a bridge too far for me? I think I'm going to see myself out of this conversation. Don't you feel like you've lost touch with what makes you human when you say only babies? I mean, they killed women, children, and the elderly as well. They killed men as well. Don't you feel like you've just kind of Like, do you think this is good guy shit? A lot of these people think in Marvel terms, you know? Good guy, bad guy terms. No, it's just a manipulation I don't like. What manipulation? Were babies murdered last night? Absolutely. Does it have to be exclusively babies that were murdered? How many babies do you think Israel gets to murder? Because the number is in the thousands already. You think I'm the one who's being manipulative for correctly stating facts? You went babies, Lamau, because you made it seem as though Israel had not killed any babies whatsoever. Just because you don't know something, I mean, here, this is a YouTuber, Swifter, found out my 9-month-old cousin, his mom, his uncles, all their kids killed by Israel last night. Fuck Netanyahu and anyone trying to justify the evil shit all for the sake of greed, land, and staying in power. No, it's just a manipulation I don't like. No, what you don't like is that Israel does this kind of shit and you're such a goddamn bot, such a fucking thoughtless NPC that you want to unconditionally defend Israel because America is defending Israel, and therefore it kind of conflicts with the humanity that you might have inside of you, the remainder of that humanity that you might have inside of you. So you just turn around and go, oh, it's just it's emotional manipulation that you're doing. If it makes you feel some type of way, if Israel's actions are making you feel some type of way, then maybe you should reflect on that. Maybe you should think about that. Take a deep breath and think, why does it make me feel bad that Israel is doing horrifying shit? Everybody has a little bit of that human inside of them that they actively suppress, especially when they're trying to defend an apartheid state that is doing a genocide, right? You have two options here. You can try and shoot the messenger, try and undermine the message itself, or self-reflect. I urge you to engage in the act of self-reflection because clearly there's something inside of you that says, well, Israel's killing babies and it makes me feel bad. I think you can do it. I believe in you. If accurate assessment of events makes you feel emotional, then there's something going on up here where this, what you feel here, is at odds with this, what you're presenting as your point, as your side. Think about it. Yeah, that's what happened, lol. Sure, dude. I don't know how to describe to you what is going on here. Sure, dude. Sure, lol. Emotional manipulation, lol.
Lighting up Gaza just after 2:30 a.m. local time in the largest assault on Hamas targets since the ceasefire took effect nearly 2 months ago. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordering the IDF to take forceful action against Hamas after the terror group refused to release.
Yeah, nice try trying to make me feel something, stupid. Don't you know I'm a fucking moron? Ha! Guess what? I won't be feeling anything. Well, I tried, you know.
More hostages. Netanyahu calling for continued extensive strikes. Explosions could be heard throughout Gaza. More than 400 people killed and more than 500 injured, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. A number of people are trapped under the rubble, so that number is expected to rise. Hamas saying Netanyahu has overturned the ceasefire agreement. For 6 weeks, there has been relative calm in the region with the return of about 36 hostages in exchange for almost 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. That first phase of the ceasefire ended 2 weeks ago. Since then, negotiations have stalled, with neither side able to agree on a path forward. The second phase was supposed to see the release of nearly 60 hostages and bring an end to the 17-month war that began with the Hamas attack on Israel.
Yeah, that began. Yeah, October 7th was the first time that anything ever happened. Please, no matter what you do, don't look at October 6, 2023. You know? Please don't look at 76 years of apartheid, please, because that would undermine the entire point.
Israel on October 7th of 2023. The White House saying Israel had consulted with the administration before the strikes. It was just 42 days ago that President Trump hosted Netanyahu at the White House, the first foreign dignitary to visit the White House for Trump's second term. Trump saying he could end the war and issuing a warning to Hamas if they delayed the return of the hostages. This new round of fighting will undoubtedly deepen the humanitarian crisis within Gaza, where food and aid haven't entered since March 2nd. As for the hostages, the last living American-Israeli hostage had been expected to be returned at the start of Phase 2, but clearly that is off the table for now. Hamas has rejected all of the proposals it received from President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and this morning, Netanyahu promises the attacks in Gaza will only intensify. Mary?
When did they start calling it the Hamas-run health ministry? Immediately after the El Ahli hospital strike, which Israel claimed actually didn't have 400 casualties, not just deaths, but casualties across the board, a mistranslation, and then claimed was actually a misfired Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket. And then, many of the pro-Israeli brigaders came out of the woodwork to be like, Israel would never attack a hospital. They literally attacked every other hospital. They had attacked Al Ahli literally 2 days prior to the fucking courtyard bombing. And in that process, the new meta of undermining the Palestinian position came about, where they were like, oh yeah, these are numbers coming from the Hamas-run health ministry. Biden repeated that. Biden turned around and said, I don't trust Hamas. These are Hamas-run health ministry numbers. Biden said it publicly. Genocide heir Joe Biden. Genocide Joe. It's not a new meta. No, it is a new meta. It was a new meta. Before that, they would say Palestinian health ministry or Gaza health ministry. Hamas-run health ministry is, I'm sure it's been utilized before, but never to this degree. It's not like it was never a part of the lexicon. All of a sudden, after Biden said that, all hell broke loose. Everybody started using it. Now they're using it for Yemen. The Yemen health ministry is Houthi-run health ministry now. That's where it became a thing. Yeah. Western media's reference to the Hamas-run health ministry. This is from December 29, 2023 from Mondo Weiss. Western media's reference to the Hamas-run health ministry is another dehumanizing tactic enabling Israel's genocide. Labeling every part of Gaza as connected to Hamas makes every part of Gaza a legitimate military target. This is what Israel did with the Gaza health ministry and the Al-Shifa hospital, echoed uncritically by Western mainstream media. Yeah, they tried to do that with Al-Shifa too. They were like, oh, Al-Shifa, we didn't attack the courtyard, except this time there was direct camera footage that undermined their position. That didn't stop them from lying about it and claiming that it was a misfired Palestinian Islamic Jihad or Hamas rocket or whatever. Yeah. They also did it for Lebanon. They do it everywhere. Everywhere that Israel attacks, they have valid security concerns. Okay? Valid security concerns galore. It's always a valid security concern. And all of the targets are actually secretly sheltering, insert enemy combatant, insert local enemy combatant here. The fact that the American media still goes along with this nonsense shows how morally bankrupt Western media is across the board.
Hamas is responsible for this war. It invaded our towns, murdered our people, raped our women, and kidnapped our loved ones. Hamas refused offer after offer to release our hostages. In the past 2 weeks, Israel did not initiate any military action in the hope that Hamas would change course. Well, that didn't happen. While Israel accepted the offer of President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, Hamas flatly refused to do so. And this is why I authorized yesterday the renewal of military action against Hamas. Israel does not target Palestinian civilians. We target Hamas terrorists. And when these terrorists embed themselves in civilian areas, when they use civilians as human shields, they're the ones who are responsible for all unintended casualties. Palestinian civilians should avoid...
Yeah, they're making me do this. They're making me do this. I really don't want to do this, except I really do want to do this. I love doing this, and I will keep doing it, and there's not really anything you can do about it to stop me. Any other country that behaved like Israel, America would be fucking drop shipping paratroopers, okay? They would be violently seizing control. There would be like a global a global call to arms, not dissimilar to Nazi Germany. As a matter of fact, identical to Nazi Germany, because the actions right now that Israel is engaging in are damn near identical to Nazi Germany. Just, modernized for the internet day and age, the era of constantly being able to see exactly what's going on. When people say, look at Russia, okay, exactly. Look at Russia. Every single global superpower got together to try and, to the best of their ability, stop Russia, to make it as punishing as possible for Russia to engage in unjustifiable acts of violence on Ukrainian soil. Israel could not withstand a fraction of that. Do you understand? Israel cannot withstand a fraction of that. A fraction. Are all of the Western leaders that launched into action, that sprung into action, are they arming Palestinian resistance right now in the same way that they armed Ukrainians? Is that what they're doing? No, they're arming Israel. That's the insane part about it. They're actively on the wrong side. Keir Starmer went to Cyprus to celebrate the British Air Forces. It was a very controversial affair, very controversial visit. Why did he have to do it quietly? Because they can't openly admit that British Air Forces are operating off of military bases in Cyprus to offer targets to Israel, to do surveillance on both southern Lebanon, as they did, and also on the Gaza Strip. They're cowards. They're morally bankrupt monsters, all of them.
Any contact with Hamas terrorists. And I call on the people of Gaza, get out of harm's way, move to safer areas. Because every civilian casualty is a tragedy. And every civilian casualty is the fault of Hamas.
Yeah, okay, dude.
I thank President Trump for his unwavering support for Israel. Our with the United States has never been stronger. To those who criticize Israel, I ask, what would you do if terrorists murdered and kidnapped your children? You would do what we are doing. Face a pure...
Who believes this? Absolute dumbasses. They genocidal monsters that want to at least like have a shred of moral seasoning, like a shred of morality associated with these monstrous actions. That's who believes it. People who are motivated in their reasoning, people who want to do fascist genocide, but then simultaneously want to feel not so bad about it, you know? That kind of people.
Pure evil. Free societies have no choice but to fight. So I want to assure all our friends around the world, Israel will fight and Israel will win. We will bring our people home and we will destroy Hamas. We will not relent until we achieve all these vital goals. And we will not rest until we give our country a future of peace, prosperity, and hope.
And we start with a Fox News alert.
Here, you'll see who wants to believe in this right now, real quick. There you go.
Israel is signaling plans for a broader offensive in Gaza as it continues.
If your child was kidnapped, wouldn't you want to bomb the kidnapper until your child is buried under a pile of rubble? Because we must eliminate the terrorists. This is why every time America has a school shooting, I always say, time to blow up the school. I love blowing up schools. After all, in schools, you might learn that Israel is not the best country. If you don't learn on accident that Israel is the only moral country, then we must bomb the school. We will bomb every school. Everywhere around the world, there are terror schools.
Continues to hammer Hamas targets.
All right, the fragile ceasefire ending over the terror group's refusal to release the remaining hostages, including American Edon Alexander.
Trey Yinks is live from Israel with the latest. Good morning, Trey.
Hey guys, good morning. Overnight, Israel went back to war against Hamas, launching dozens of airstrikes throughout the Gaza Strip. Massive explosions rocked major population centers, including Gaza City, Khan Yunis, and Rafah. We know many people were killed, though Fox News cannot independently confirm the exact number. Among the dead are reported to be numerous senior Hamas officials, including Issam al-Da'alis, who was acting as one of the de facto leaders of Hamas. Funerals were held this morning for some of the dead. We know that many are civilians. The question now is if this will continue. National Security Council spokesman Brian Hughes said in a statement, quote, Hamas could have released hostages to extend the ceasefire, but instead chose refusal and war. Hamas declined to accept a previous ceasefire proposal put forward by the Trump administration. And right now, there are cases Israel could be preparing to enter Gaza on the ground. Evacuation orders were given this morning, with the IDF releasing a map for Palestinians to leave the entirety of the Gaza border area. Israeli officials quoted in local media today are telling Hamas to release the remaining hostages for the firing to stop. Israel.
It's just like the question I have for people is like, what would you do in this situation? I know it's virtually impossible for any American to genuinely feel what it's like to be destroyed with such overwhelming force as the world kind of looks on. But if anyone says they wouldn't fight it, they're fucking lying. You know, you're just lying to yourself and everyone else in your vicinity. Like, what is the expectation? You just like die quietly. You either die on your knees, die quietly, or you die with a fight. Obviously, people are going to put up a fight. They're going to say, all right, well, we're not dying quietly. We will be able to control the ways in which we die. That's it.
Israel clearly changing their negotiation tactics here. Looking at the situation in both Doha and Cairo, they're trying to put new pressure on Hamas to free the remaining Israelis held inside Gaza. Guys?
What's the sense, Trey, inside the country? They feel as though this is overdue, or is there more angst about the hostage?
I know it's been lagging, specifically on my stream. I have people on it right now, working on it right now. They're actively monitoring it. And hopefully there will be a fix for it soon.
Yes.
So there are two parts to this. This is a little bit of inside baseball, but it's very important here. We just learned last hour that the Jewish Power Party, led by Itamar Ben-Gvir, the
KKK, the Jewish KKK, by the way, Jewish Power Party, white power. That's literally what it is. Itamar Ben-Gvir is an active Jewish supremacist, Jewish Power Party leader who is it's like having the KKK have its own party.
Country's former national security minister will be rejoining the government coalition. Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has to pass a budget next week, and this is going to allow him to do so. The other thing to look at here is the hostages. There are 59 hostages still being held by Hamas inside Gaza. They were dragged into the strip against.
24 of them are alive as of, were alive as of last night. I don't know if this bombing campaign actually killed some of them or not, but the suspicion is that 24 of them are supposed to be alive. And they were supposed to be exchanged in the prisoner swap that Hamas was engaging in with Israel in the second phase, but Israel obviously never wanted to get to the second phase.
On the morning of October 7th, and 24 of them are believed to be alive. And we've spoken with so many of the hostages who were released from Hamas captivity, from Hen Alma Goldstein, from Kfar Aza, to Shani Gorin from the Aroz. To recently, I spoke with Nama Levy, one of those surveillance soldiers who was released during this ceasefire that went into effect due to the pressure from the Trump administration. And they all have something in common. You look into their eyes and see the terror that they experienced being held as hostages. And you think about the 24 living hostages that are still there, including Idan Alexander, an American citizen, and what they must be going through. And so there's a lot of frustration among the families of the hostages about this war resuming. They are concerned that this could lead to them being killed. And they're also concerned that Hamas is not agreeing to any sort of deal that will get them freed from Gaza. And so as we look forward, the hope here is that this will lead to some sort of agreement to stop the war. At the end of the day, the people who are paying the highest price, it is the hostages that remain inside Gaza and the Palestinian civilians who are being killed by the dozens as this war resumes.
Now, Trey, we got word last week that Idan Alexander, the American from New Jersey, really happened with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So without getting too into the details.
Yeah, what happened with that? Oh, that's right. America was having a America was America was having talks directly with Hamas, and then the guy who was responsible for those talks went on television and was like, "Of course, we're the United States of America. We're going to have direct talks with Hamas to release an American prisoner." You know, it is what it is. It's not like these guys are barbaric monsters. They're human beings. You know, you can negotiate with them. And then Israel got him moved to a different place. Like they literally took him out from that position because Trump is cucked. He knows who daddy is too. After all, he pushed him into his chair. So that's what happened. They mentioned that Hamas officials were killed. I'm guessing that's not true. No, it is. The problem is these aren't the armed wing of Hamas. The officials that were killed were a part of civil governance. They're civilians. Hamas is both a political party and an administration, as it is also a separate military wing. So yes, the people that they killed were in civilian positions. It's like killing a doctor who is also a part of the Palestinian health ministry, right? The Gazan health ministry, and then being like, well, we killed a high-ranking, Hamas militant because technically that is the party that runs Gaza.
Here of what's been taking place in Doha as these negotiations continue. President Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, basically proposed a deal to Israel and Hamas that would see a two-phased deal. 11 living hostages set to be released in the first phase, and this would ultimately allow both Israel and Hamas to slowly but surely enter into phase 2 of a broader ceasefire agreement. Hamas rejected that deal that was put forward by the Trump administration and basically agreed to a deal of their own to release all of the bodies of American citizens that are currently being held inside Gaza and the final living American, Idan Alexander. This was seen by Israel.
Yeah, imagine if imagine if Russia assassinated the head of the EPA, okay? And then Russian media was like, yeah, we killed a terrorist. We killed a terrorist. That's what's happening. And also in the assassination of the head of the EPA, the Russian forces also blew up entire city blocks and killed 400 people, 180 babies. Okay? 180 children, not babies, sorry. Some of them were babies. I don't know if all of them were. Overwhelming majority, women, children, and the elderly.
Israeli officials and Trump administration officials as a spin by Hamas, trying to pressure negotiators and also trying to drive a wedge between the Israelis and the Americans. And so we did see that statement. We reported it out. But again, what we are looking at here is likely some sort of proposal on the table that remains. And at this hour, we do understand, according to Arab media, that negotiators are trying to say to Hamas, look, you have an opportunity to again come to the table and release the hostages. And this is the only way that this is going to basically give you an exit ramp and end what is now starting to become another major operation against the organization in control of Gaza.
So, Trey, what do the family... This is a tough spot for any family member to be in because you want the hostages, you want your loved one home with you. But then you see Israel's point of view, which is Hamas is not negotiating in good faith. They're not releasing. They haven't stuck with any of the guidelines in the past deals that were reached. And so are they upset with the Israeli government, or are they supportive of these measures now?
So actually here in Israel, there are a lot of key disagreements about how to move forward with all of this. We saw overnight some of the hostages that were actually freed from Gaza and the families of those that remain inside the Strip posting broken hearts to social media and releasing statements of frustration about the war resuming.
Should Hamas release the hostages is a question that someone asked. Yes, they should, in accordance with the ceasefire proposal that was implemented and agreed upon. Why the fuck should Hamas keep the hostages? What are you talking about? And Israel should also, in the same process, remove its troops from the Netzarim and Philadelphia corridor and move into the final stage, the third phase of the ceasefire proposal, where there's still more prisoner swaps and prisoner releases taking place, and that a permanent cessation of hostilities can be implemented. Yes. I don't know why you're saying Israel won't follow the agreement. I know. Yeah, they should. What do you want me to say about that? I know that already.
Because there is real concern that this will ultimately lead to the deaths of the remaining hostages inside Gaza. But you raise a very important point here. Hamas has not negotiated in good faith, and it has led to a very challenging situation for negotiating teams and for President Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff. As they look at what's being presented, there is only one option, according to the Trump administration officials who are dealing with these ceasefire conversations, and that is a future for Gaza that does not have Hamas in control. And so they are encouraging Hamas to agree to a ceasefire, ultimately lay down their weapons, and release the remaining hostages. But the situation that we're looking at right now is incredibly dire, because if they don't do that, Israel is committed to continuing the war against Hamas. And as a result, many Palestinian civilians that are inside Gaza, remember, there are more than 2 million people inside the Strip, will be killed as a result. And so there are no winners in all of this. And again, at the focus here, the center of all of this, the remaining hostages, 59 of them, that have been held by Hamas, this organization in Gaza, since the morning of October 7th.
Right.
Guys?
And Trey, final question for you. Clearly, the Israelis completely dialed in the White House. We had heard that they were consulting with the White House. And you were speaking of the Arab media. I'm looking at the Jerusalem Post. And apparently, Israel coordinated this attack with the United States after Yemen. So it was going to be a 1-2 punch.
It's not surprising. There is incredibly close coordination happening right now between the Israeli government and the Trump administration, because when you think about the threats currently taking place in the Middle East, it's not just inside Gaza with groups like Hamas and Islamic Jihad, but it's also the Houthis in Yemen, who committed to firing once again on Israel with ballistic missiles and drones if the war ends.
One must ask the question, why Israel is so committed to firing ballistic missiles on, you know, civilian population that it is the belligerent occupier of. One must also simultaneously ask the question, why did the Houthis stop firing missiles since January 18th when the ceasefire proposal was implemented? Why did they start again? I thought they were belligerent anti-Semites who just want to kill Jews. What is going on? This makes no sense. But don't worry, I'm sheltered from this information. I'm sheltered from any sort of perspective that might break through on the consent being manufactured in Western media. So I will never learn. I am not interested in learning. I will just go, la, 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 I can't hear you. And I will operate under the false notion, the understanding that these guys are actually just like fucking bad guys, purely committed to doing bad shit.
Inside Gaza resumed, but then you have Iran-backed organizations in places like Iraq and Syria that have participated in this conflict over the past 17 months. And then, of course, Iran-backed Hezbollah in southern Lebanon that still, this far into the conflict, has the capability to launch rockets and missiles into Israel. And so the Trump administration is looking at this in a holistic way. They're taking a 360 approach.
Cry harder, bomb's still gonna fall, lol, fafo. Yeah, dude. Sick, man. Your position is actually super sustainable. You're definitely cool. You're definitely strong. Thank you, ban me. I'm not gonna ban you. I'm not. I think your embarrassing attitude talking about your embarrassing position talking about Israel assassinating 180 children, 400 people, 73% of them being women, children, and the elderly, should be seen by all. I don't think that people should, I don't think that we should shelter your moral depravity from the rest of this audience. Demanding that you get a ban out of this is so sad too. A pathetic display. You're nothing. You're lower than dirt. That's why you come in here and you're like, this is my act of resistance, baby. This is my act of resistance. Come on, ban me. Now you'll move on to say, oh, did I own you? Are you seething? Okay. Well, instead you said, what did the other side do? I don't know. Exist as Palestinians indigenous to the land. That's what the other side did historically. That's it. That's what the other side did. Is that too difficult for you to comprehend? Yeah, keyboard martyr over here. Cry harder. Bombs are still going to fall, lol. Fafo. Meanwhile, it's your tax dollars that are going to the baby murder machine. Your tax dollars. $1 that could be spent on your schools, $1 that could be spent on your roads, $1 that could be spent on your infrastructure, going directly to bombs so that Israel can annihilate children at a rapid clip in an industrial scale. Not only are you an animal, but you are too stupid to recognize that there's a cost to all of this. And I'm not even talking about the moral penalty. I'm not even talking about the fact that you are actively dehumanizing yourself, actively reducing yourself to something less than human. Ha, değil. Hayır. Okay, bir dakika sonra takarım. Dur, takarım şimdi, dur.
Approach trying to not only support their key ally in the region, Israel, but also ensure that American vessels in the Red Sea, for example, are not targeted by these Iranian proxies, such as the Houthis. A lot of moving parts here, but as the war inside Gaza resumes, the big question here, as Benjamin Hall mentioned earlier on Fox and Friends, will the Iranians get involved, and how will the Iranians be a part of all of this? We saw that statement yesterday from the President of the United States, basically warning Iran that if they do not stop funding and supporting these proxy organizations that have launched attacks not only on Israel but also on American forces in the region, there will be consequences. Guys?
And by the way, there's an unconfirmed report
Thank you, Trey.
That they've taken out the spy ship that Iran had in the Red Sea that's been sitting there for 3 years, offering coordinates to the Houthis to take out the merchant ships. That it was sunk.
right.
So
All
hopefully
coordinated.
that'll be it. That shows you there's a new sheriff in town.
All right.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Hundreds of thousands took to the streets in Yemen on Monday in protest against the latest U.S. strikes. But Washington says this may be just the beginning. President Trump's first military operation since returning to office continued into a third day, targeting what the U.S. says are Houthi sites in Yemen.
We will use overwhelming lethal force until we have achieved our objective. With that said, and this is a very important point, this is also not an endless offensive.
The Pentagon says the ongoing operation struck at least 30 Houthi targets over the weekend, including training and weapons centers, and resulted in several dozen military casualties. It denied any civilians were hurt, despite evidence to the contrary. The U.S. also said it shot down 11 Houthi drones, which had targeted U.S. warships. Meanwhile, Trump took to social media, claiming that the Houthi attacks were being directed by Iran. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran.
Can you wear an Israel government hat and cosplay why they're doing this? I'm just having trouble understanding what their reasoning for this shit is. No, I'm not going to fucking do a Nazi cosplay on here. Okay? I already get close enough with the MAGA shit. I'm not going to directly do Nazi cosplay. In terms of attacking Yemen's Houthis, no, my mom is walking Kaya. That's why I was away on camera. Remember, I couldn't, she walked Kaya already. Walking her again because I couldn't take her to the park this morning because I was doing a podcast. Anyway, so the reason why Trump is doing this is clear. It's because Yemen decided to re-implement its blockade when Israel decided to violate its own ceasefire agreements by denying humanitarian aid going into Gaza. Okay? Israel denied humanitarian aid from going into Gaza. So Yemen said, we're going to restart the blockade. And then Israel started bombing. So then Yemen said, oh, it's over. We're definitely going to no more red lines. No more red lines whatsoever. And instead of Trump saying, hey, Israel, follow through on the conditions of the ceasefire set forth, Trump turned around and did the Joe Biden thing, which is attack Yemen for the crime of trying to stop Israel from doing a genocide, despite being the poorest nation on the planet right now.
Iran. And Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire. The White House press secretary reinforced that message to Iran.
There's a new sheriff in town, and this president is not just going to sit on his hands and allow terrorists to launch attacks on commercial vessels and U.S. naval ships.
The Houthis had not attacked ships in the Red Sea since the Gaza ceasefire took effect in January, but had warned it would renew its attacks on ships.
Remember I told you Trump to blame last week? You said it's all Biden. What are you saying, dude? Why are chatters arguing with a imagined version of me? I'm right here, dude. Okay? You don't have to make up shit that I haven't said. This is very confusing. Either you're in a entirely different stream or I don't know what the fuck's going on here, because none of the things that are happening right now were unpredictable. I, as a matter of fact, said it was going to happen over and over again.
shipping if Israel continues to block aid from entering Gaza. The Pentagon says the operation against the Houthis will continue until the Houthis pledge to stop their attacks. Heidi Jo Castro, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel.
Meantime, to the case of another Columbia student.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we're now going back to the domestic front to talk about the actions being taken by the Trump administration on the domestic front against people who are speaking against this genocide. I guess the silver lining, if you want to call it that, on all of this stuff is the Houthis won't exist much longer, probably. Yeah, I don't know where you're making this inference from, because their blockade on the Red Sea has only galvanized the Houthi position and has actually restored almost singularity to the entirety of Yemen. Yemen undergoing a civil war backed by Western-backed coalition forces with the UAE and Saudi Arabia, literally all put their arms down to unite against Israel. So you're entirely wrong on this. And if Operation Prosperity Guardian showed us anything, it is that you can spend $1 billion worth of munitions by bombing heavily, densely populated civilian areas, claiming that you're like blowing up, enemy military positions. Israel directly targeted the Sanaa airport in Yemen while the leader of the World Health Organization was inside of the fucking airport, by the way. And yet none of that has stopped Yemen from successfully implementing a blockade on the Red Sea for as long as the genocide continues. Yeah, bombing guerrilla terror groups has always worked, right? I haven't paid attention to any foreign conflict for 30 years. 30 years, basically almost 100 years. You can bomb guerrilla insurgencies all day, every day. Look at fucking Vietnam. It never works. It never works. You can't do it. Look at the Taliban. Look at the Viet Cong in Vietnam. And Yemen is yet another blip on a long and convoluted chapter of American imperialism and its ineffective methods of dealing with insurgencies. Yeah, look at North Korea. Exactly. It's so stupid.
Student whose future is uncertain.
Also, yes, the bottom shelf is correct. The point isn't it for it to work. It's to sell bombs anyway. You have to have a steady flow of weapons. You have to consistently recycle. You have to consistently find new targets. That's it. It's that simple. You don't have to actually bomb these countries into oblivion and destroy them. That's not the real purpose of all of this. The real purpose of all this is to just keep making new weapons, keep making more unique ways of murdering children.
Amid the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, PhD candidate Ranjani Srinivasan says she fled the country after her student visa was suddenly revoked. She sat down with Lilia Luciano to tell her story in her first TV interview.
The events in the last 2 weeks have sort of spiraled out of control.
37-year-old Ranjani Srinivasan is originally from India. She's been in the U.S. legally as a PhD student of urban planning at Columbia University. But in early March, she was suddenly notified that her student visa was being revoked.
I was talking to the advisor from the international students office on Zoom. She was reassuring me that I'm fine. And while that was happening, ICE was knocking on my door.
Without a visa.
The excuse being repeated by media outlets is that Israel stopped this. Hamas doesn't want to release the hostages. Is that true? What do you think? Of course it's not true. Anything that Israel... Dude, I'm sorry. There is a handful of moments where Israel has told the truth. Okay? Not even a handful. There's it's much easier to figure out when Israel has told the truth than not. They always lie. Literally, always. Governments lie all the time, but Israel is a particularly gross offender. All governments lie, but Israel is egregious and consistent. No. The reason why the ceasefire fell apart is because Israel already was violating the conditions of the ceasefire to begin with, not letting in enough aid that they previously had agreed upon, or even shutting off aid in its entirety this past week. But then completely ending the ceasefire talks. We want to move on to phase 2 of the ceasefire, where the hostage, like the prisoner swaps would continue. They didn't want to get to the second phase of the ceasefire because they never wanted to stop bombing Gaza. They wanted to continue bombing Gaza. It's that simple. They want to continue the ethnic displacement and ethnic cleansing campaign. Everything Israel says and does is projection.
Her enrollment at Columbia was terminated, and fearing she'd be detained indefinitely, she fled to Canada. The issue seems to stem from last year's pro-Palestinian protest on Columbia's campus. On April 30th, students occupied a building. That night, NYPD officers arrested hundreds on and off various university campuses, including Srinivasan. But she says she was not involved at all.
You were not inside Hamilton Hall?
No, I was at a department picnic with my friends and faculty.
You weren't even protesting that day?
No, I was on the way back home. Barricades. I think the police charged.
Maybe skip the cloud server for now. You got it, man. Let me just end the broadcast for today. Like, I can't, okay? I know that it's effing. I know that it's skipping. You're just going to have to live with it, all right? Thanks for the feedback, chatter. Yes, every now and then there's going to be a minor blip. It's okay.
She was cited for obstructing the sidewalk and failure to disperse. Those charges were dismissed. But according to DHS sources, she did not include those citations in her visa renewal application.
If I made a mistake, I would be happy to clarify that with the state. I never meant to conceal anything. I've been in complete compliance with my visa. I would like a chance to clear my name.
In a statement, DHS accused her of being involved in activities supporting Hamas without providing any proof.
The Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, said that you are a terrorist sympathizer.
I just found it absurd. I'm not a terrorist sympathizer.
For now, she's stuck in limbo and worries the crackdown will have an effect that goes far beyond free speech.
I came to the US because I really like the academic culture, and you have a lot of academic freedom. Something that you don't really find anywhere else in the world. But currently, I do think that there is a crazy climate of fear in universities, and especially in Columbia.
So do you think the thing that brought you to the U.S. is ending?
Yes.
Columbia told us once a student visa is revoked, it has to unenroll a student. Srinivasan's lawyers argue that those dismissed citations should not have had any impact on her visa eligibility. We asked DHS for clarification on this case, but we did not get a response. To be clear, the government does have ample discretion when it comes to revoking student visas.
Yeah, this is more so a process of should they. We just talked about a student. We just talked about a student having their visa revoked and having to escape the country. Okay, for the most minor of reasons, which again, not because of the fact that she was falsely detained and didn't report on it or anything like that, but instead because she dared to protest against Israel. Now let's move on to the doctor from Rhode Island who was here in the United States on an H-1B visa, denied admission to the U.S. because of photos on her phone. This is a doctor that works in a very specialized unit in Rhode Island that has an H-1B visa for this reason. She also happens to be from Lebanon. Okay, let's take a look at why she was denied entry into the United States of America.
Information about why a Brown University professor was denied entry to the U.S. even though she had a valid visa. As WBZ's Louisa Moeller shows us, because of photos on her phone and her answers to certain
It's a kidney transplant doctor. She works with my family. This shit is insane. Yes.
questions, customs officials consider her a possible threat.
Court documents say Rasha Alloway had just gotten off a plane at Boston Logan last Thursday, on her way to be an assistant professor and doctor at Brown University on an H-1B or work visa when she was detained and sent back to her home country of Lebanon. Now, new court filings are providing evidence as to why. After arriving in Boston, officials searched her phone and Dr. Alloway interviewed by Customs and Border Protection.
Bro, this is straight up Israel shit, by the way. This is what Israel does to the Palestinian citizens of Israel. This is what Israel does in the West Bank to Palestinians in the West Bank. America is now doing Israel shit for Israel, ironically enough. It's just Nazi shit. Oh, let me see your phone. oh, sorry. That's a thought crime. That is crazy.
Protection official. She was asked why she had photos of
Yeah, it's what people say China does to everybody. That's what's so crazy. This is literally like, oh, yeah, I bet that's what they're doing in China. They don't, by the way. That's crazy.
Hezbollah fighters and martyrs, including photos of the designated terror group's assassinated leader, Hassan Nasrallah, on her phone. She answered,
"Oh my God, I can't believe that she had a photo of Hassan Nasrallah on her phone. I guess, nope, sorry. Visa revoked. We are straight up psychopaths, dude. This is insane. But why would she have the pic? I don't know, a million different reasons. Maybe she loves Hassan Nasrallah. Is that a good enough reason to be like, yeah, sorry, no more H-1B visa? What do you mean? Why does she have the pic? I have pictures of fucking Osama bin Laden in my phone. What are you talking about? Okay, let's hear her answer. What are you entertaining in this process? What kind of fucking photos do you have on your phone? Does that mean I love Osama bin Laden? No. The fuck do you mean? What is this fucking take, dude? What are we doing? No, don't, Hassan. Don't say that. They will see it. No, that's fucking ridiculous. I have pictures. I'm a political commentator. I have pictures of fucking many prominent political figures on my fucking phone from memes that I've screenshotted. This is idiotic. It could be for any number of different reasons. What are we talking about? The greater crime here is not the potential thought crime of having Hassan Nasrallah on your fucking phone. The greater crime is the fact that the American government is going through the phone of a person coming into the United States as though it's a normal part of the process of entry. What the hell? It's a direct invasion of people's privacy. Did they have proper search authorization for this? Like, did they have a search warrant for this? You can't just like go through someone's phone like this. I hope you understand. Yeah. Imagine they're going to start revoking people's like citizenship and revoking people's visa status for having Saddam Hussein whole pictures in their fucking phones. You know what I mean? Sorry, this meme means that you love terrorism. And for the record, she literally could say over and over again that she loves Hassan Nasrallah. Revoking someone's entry into the country over that, regardless of what the czar is psychotic. I disagree with it on principle. What the fuck do you mean? This is why I this is why I kept talking. This is why I kept talking about the Mahmoud Khalil story where I said it's completely. She's coming to the States with a picture of a terrorist that country deems a terrorist. They have a right to refuse. Like I said, really? Okay, so if she had a photo of Nelson Mandela coming into the United States in 2008, that's like perfectly reasonable grounds of anyone. Fuck it, Adolf Hitler. What do you mean? You can't just fucking deny people entry to the country for that reason. That's such an idiotic fucking reason. He's no longer, no, that's why I said 2008, dipshit, 2008. What the fuck are we talking about, dude? Not only is having a photo on your phone not an endorsement, but what if they did have? What if it was an endorsement? I don't give a shit if it's an endorsement. What are you talking about? That's what I keep explaining to people. Free speech is not just like, oh, I'm scared now, so it doesn't matter. That's not how this works. Same with fucking due process. Okay? Having an opinion on something aside, like not appreciating something or being very critical of something aside, the government violating your rights is unheard. It's completely unacceptable. Is that a law? No. The law is that she can, there's no problem with her fucking having a picture of anybody. What are you talking about? Sure, make it the law when I come to your country. Then, oh my God, you're not even American. Oh my God. Oh my God. There is nothing. Dude, American hogs are incredibly low on the bottom of the fucking totem pole, all right, in terms of like being servile little piglets. But a guy who's not even an American, who's LARPing as a fucking American hog, is unimaginable, dude. Oh my God, you are lower than the dumbest inbred hog, you fucking Ian Miles Chong ass motherfucker. Holy shit. Fantasizing about being an American hog. LMFAO, if you think I'm a hog, well, you're oinking like one right now. You're squealing like a fucking little piglet.
Many came from family and friends through a WhatsApp group. And about Nasrallah, quote, he's highly regarded in the Shia community and he's a religious and spiritual person. As I said, he has a very high value. She also told the official she attended a Hezbollah rally, quote, "I attended the commemoration of the death of Nasrallah during this trip while I was waiting for my visa." The customs official refused her admission and canceled her visa. She was detained and put back on a plane to Lebanon on...
This right here is completely unacceptable. Is it a matter of Customs and Border Enforcement? Yes. It's still completely fucking unacceptable. Do you understand? It's completely unacceptable. It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. If someone came to the U.S. with a picture of Hitler on their phone, Trump would hire them on the spot. True. Yeah. So within legal rights, but you don't like it, so change it, but don't get mad they're enforcing the current laws. Okay, you can't say I'm not a hog and then say the most hoggish motherfucking thing on the planet, dude. It's like if I was doing commentary during the fucking slavery era, being like, this is unjustifiable, and you're like, well, just change the rules around slavery then. Stop complaining about it. No, the photo part is not. The Customs and Border Patrol has broad discretionary powers over denying entry into the United States of America. Many of those rules are outdated, antiquated, oftentimes not applied because it's fucking idiotic. The picture part of this conversation is not a part of the law. Having said that, you can be like, oh, well, I saw that you went to the Hassan Nasrallah funeral. We don't like that. We are denying you entry into the country because Customs and Border Patrol have broad, expansive powers in comparison to revoking someone's citizenship. This is something that I stressed when I was talking about the Mahmoud Khalil, the Mahmoud Khalil story. It doesn't really matter, though, because they're burning the candle on both ends, as they are obviously engaging in insane levels of enforcement on American legal permanent residents anyway. Having said that, however, the notion where you're like, oh, we'll just change it while I'm actively in the process of criticizing the fucking existing mandate that is so ridiculous that the government usually doesn't apply this, okay, and will apply leniency because it would be fucking impossible to enforce and also ridiculous once again. You're turning around and being like, well, change the law then. Okay, dude, I can't even change the law in the direction of giving everybody health care, okay? Hope you're ready for the Ethan clip to say this. You're pro-terror. I don't care. I don't care. The real terrorism here is what the American government is doing. What are we talking about? The notion that like someone going to the Hassan Nasrallah funeral is enough to be like, yeah, you're a highly specialized doctor that works on patients. Sorry, fuck your patients, your American patients. We don't care anymore. You can't come into the country is psychotic. It's insane. Yeah. It's also idiotic to assume that Ethan Klein was not going to call me a terrorist or a terror lover or an Islamist fundamentalist or whatever insane thing that he comes up with on a daily basis, call me a fucking anti-Semite over and over again without this clip. You know, he's been doing that. Trust me. I agree with you 90% of the time, but this one I can't see it. Okay, let me explain this in terms that you could understand. Is there anything? Are there any photos of I don't know, memes or even an endorsement of a political figure that the American government doesn't appreciate? Do you think that should stop the American government from letting you into the country? She even deleted the pics. They went through the recently deleted folders. She took some precautions that they still found a way. I'm also from Lebanon, cannot go back because I'm scared of my visa being revoked. I was interrogated by Customs and Border Patrol under the previous administration and cannot even imagine what it's like now. The funeral part is a bit odd. Why is it odd? This is a leading political figure or what a political in fucking Lebanon. Why is that odd? Because the American government's like, he's a terrorist? Is that why it's odd? Okay, that's why I always bring up the example of fucking Nelson Mandela. He was on the terror watch list until 2008, okay? It doesn't matter. It's ridiculous. This doesn't apply. This standard does not apply across the board. If that was the case, then Kahanis would not be allowed into George Bush funeral. Did you just compare Hassan Nasrallah to fucking George Bush? Are you out of your mind? George Bush. First of all, I don't think that anyone should be denied entry into the country for going to the George Bush funeral. That's number one. Number two, George Bush killed millions. What are you saying? I appreciate that you're willing to say it so bluntly. The media is too scared to say the truth. This is free speech that we need to fight for, not the right wing's imaginary fight against same pronouns. I know. All of the free speech defenders, when actual violations against free speech occurs, are not only not quiet, but they're actually actively on the side of violating free speech. This is ridiculous. Like, how many people that are directly in the IDF and have done war crimes have been able to come back into the United States freely? What are we talking about? I'm not even talking about people who are pro-Israel, pro-baby murder, pro-genocide. I'm talking straight up people who conducted it. And they get to walk in freely and operate on U.S. soil as though they did nothing at all. And you're over here being like, well, this doctor went to the Hasanabi funeral. I think it's suspicious. What do you mean? How is that suspicious? The fuck does that mean? Say what you actually mean. Do you think this person is a terrorist? That's the question. Do you think this person is a terrorist? It pairs up so nicely with what we just talked about with the previous story of a person being falsely detained by police and signing off on a Architects Against Genocide petition, and then liking Instagram posts, and then having their student visa revoked for that reason. No, I don't. I just see how the current government see that as a high red flag. What do you mean? I don't care what the government considers to be a red flag. I think it's a fucking ridiculous, erroneous reason to basically engage in a self-own here, by the way, because an H-1B visa for a Lebanese doctor working at Brown University at the highly specialized like kidney unit is obviously the perfect example of someone that needed to be in the United States of America, where they were like, we have to give this person, a Lebanese doctor, this visa because we need her here. America is cooking itself in an effort to, it's a self-inflicted, okay? Denying entry into the country for this person at the behest of an idiotic notion that like this person has radical, dangerous ideas is so stupid. Just a hypothetical, not saying anything about the doctor, but under their ideal society, should we allow someone with pictures of fan heads of Hitler in their camera roll? Yes! 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 I do. I do think that. Yes. Same with Benjamin Netanyahu. Same with fucking Adolf Hitler. Yes. Do you want to know why? Because this is erroneous enforcement. Okay? Yes. This is, what an idiotic question. Shall I give you prominent examples of how people don't even look in that direction? I already did. I already gave you an example of that. Virtually, people that are pro-IDF get to travel freely into the United States as the IDF is doing genocide in Gaza, okay? They get to travel freely into the United States. The fucking former leadership, like we had Yoav Gallant here. He has an ICC warrant for war crimes. He fucking came to the United States of America to the press tour. What are you talking about? We're not only letting Nazis into the country, we're putting them in prominent positions of fucking power.
Friday.
I mean, I think that they're within their rights to say, well, we haven't been properly served.
Lawyers for Alloway said Customs and Border Protection ignored an order by a federal judge allowing the doctor to stay in the U.S. for 48 hours while her case was reviewed. CBP argues their attorneys didn't get the order until after Alloway was in the air. And as for her interview, immigration attorney Stephen Roth says Customs and Border Protection can search anyone's phone for national security reasons inside an airport, and reserves the right to refuse admission to immigrants even if their visa has been approved by the State Department.
But CBP has statutory, regulatory, and legal precedent on their side that allow.
Yeah. The previous incident and Mahmoud Khalil are incidents where the American government is grossly overstepping previously established boundaries. This right here is technically within the legal confines. Okay. Having said that, I still disagree with it vehemently. Do you understand? It's one of those circumstances where like the government does technically have the right to do this. I disagree with it because I think it's a fucking stupid way to operate. If you can't comprehend the dangers of behavior, if you can't comprehend the dangers of this sort of behavior, all right, you don't understand how this might impact you in the future. You have a million photos on your phone. The government pulls you aside. They look through your phone. You got memes of Osama bin Laden. You're denied entry. Your visa is revoked. Ridiculous. It's quite literally saying thought crimes. It's here. It's here. We're not letting you in for thought crimes.
allows them to search anyone's phone coming into the United States.
A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security.
Your boys in kneecap are currently in America. I put money on one of the fellas having a Bobby Sands photo in their phones. Dog, kneecap literally posted a photo reading quotations from Hassan Nasrallah like a couple of weeks ago. Güzel yürüdü mü? Okay. Eyvallah. Tamam. Teşekkür ederim.
He said a visa is a privilege and not a right, and quote, glorifying and supporting.
Having memes of Hussein and going to a prominent public figure funeral is way different. No, it's still on the same. It is still the same principle. Okay, it is still the same principle. Like, we don't person. It doesn't matter. If you go to Luigi's court proceeding, the standard is this. Okay, let's say you are a green card holder, a legal permanent resident. Okay, let's say, because we haven't officially moved on to denaturalization yet. We're not there yet. Okay, I'm going to walk you through this. You went to Luigi Mangioni's court trial. Okay, you showed support to Luigi Mangione publicly. Luigi Mangione is currently on trial for terrorism. Okay. You have photos of Luigi Mangione on your phone. You come back into the United States of America. Customs and Border Patrol goes through your phone, sees that you have deleted Luigi Mangione photos off your phone. They find it in the deleted bucket in your phone. Okay, they look through the metadata. They figure out that you have Luigi Mangione sympathies. They find out that you've been to the Luigi Mangione trial. They take away your pathway to citizenship. They take away and revoke your green card. They take away your student visa. Do you think this is appropriate? Because both Luigi Mangione is considered a terrorist, and so is Hassan Nasrallah. Do you understand? How do you not recognize that if they can do this today, these arbitrary reasons can be applied today, right now? Mehdi says, arbitrary reasons for deportation is a clear avenue for legalized discrimination. Exactly. The whitewash narratives in defense of this shows how many people have lost the plot as to what free speech is and means. Thank you. Exactly. That is exactly what's going on. I had to use a fucking white dude for some of these dumb fucks to understand, even though they're in the fucking community of a dude whose name is Hassan and gets called a fucking terrorist every day. How do you not understand that you being in here right now could mean that your citizenship could be revoked in the fucking future? You're so stupid. Jesus Christ. It's the same fucking name. If they no longer care about due process, and if they arbitrarily designate people as terrorists or showing sympathies to terrorists, one day you will be in the fucking crosshairs. It's that simple. It's that simple.
Reporting terrorists who kill Americans is grounds for visa issuance to be denied. Dr. Alloway's case in federal court has been continued to later in the month. At Logan Airport, Louisa Moeller, WBZ News.
Spike in anti-Semitism we're experiencing right now in America began after the worst instance of violence committed against Jewish people since the Holocaust.
Back in 2023, New York Senator Chuck Schumer made a passionate and personal speech from the Senate floor condemning anti-Semitism, and that is the topic of his new book called Anti-Semitism in America, A Warning. In it, he writes, the rise of anti-Semitism is a, quote, five-alarm fire that threatens American democracy. And Senator Schumer joins us now. Senator, thank you very much for being here.
Great to be with you all.
Wouldn't want to be looking out your window when I woke up this morning, right? You've got protesters out there.
I'm not looking forward to these clips being posted a year from now when everything is worse, exactly as you've said, in an effort to vindicate you. I know. It's just, there's nothing we can stop. I mean, there's nothing we can do to stop it, though, unfortunately, it seems. All we can do is keep resisting with the hopes that, like, you know, inevitably the government will back down from it. Interesting. Double Cirque Tony having a very different tone with Chuck Schumer as he did with Ta-Nehisi Coates. If you recall, you know, he's not saying that this book has writings that could be seen in the backpack of a terrorist.
It's been a difficult few days. We're going to get to that. We're also going to get to the book. But I want to talk about what's going on in the Middle East, because overnight, the ceasefire that had held and that you had celebrated between Israel and Hamas has been broken.
Right.
Your reaction to that, and do you think a ceasefire could get back on the table?
Yes.
Could it be reestablished?
They were really close. And this ceasefire, the second round of the ceasefire is important. because first it says Hamas, which I believe has been a large cause of the trouble, would disarm and Israel would remove its soldiers from Gaza. So they were close. It fell apart. I don't know the exact details. It happened overnight. But I think our government has to work really hard to bring them back to the table and get those hostages home. And I think it's possible because they were close at one point.
Now, last week, you and 9 other Democrats helped avert a government shutdown by voting for a Republican written bill, which many Democrats have been angered by.
Yeah. By the way, the government is considering keying Teslas an act of terror. And dumb fucks in the chat are like, I don't understand. It's just like you went to a funeral proceeding. It's perfectly valid for the government to just like deny you your visa. I have no thoughts in my mind. Certainly, the fascist administrative state will not expand on the definition of terrorism away from people that you agree to people that you like. Certainly, that's never happened historically. This is the problem. This is the issue with violating certain pre-existing protections.
And we've seen it described as a civil war, as a train wreck. Many Democrats believe, you know, if you have a government shutdown, that will force President Trump and Republicans to the negotiating table. Why not use your vote to push back and fight?
Because the idea that they would go to the negotiating table is they don't do it. This is a new group. This is not the old group. Let me explain. I knew when I took this vote, there'd be a lot of protests, but I felt I had to do it for the future, not only of the Democratic Party, but the country. Because here's as bad as that CR bill was, and it was bad, a shutdown is 10 times worse. Let me give you what happens, and you're right, Gail. But can I just explain
But
what?
you had been saying you were not going to vote. I think people were upset with you, and people are very upset with you because you had led people to believe that, no, I'm going to vote against
Okay,
it.
well, let me explain why first a shutdown is terrible. People ought to know that. The executive branch, in this case, Musk, Doge, and this horrible guy Vogt, who have no concern for working people, would have had sole power to determine what opens and what closes. They determine what is essential. You can't go to court. So on day 2, get rid of SNAP and food for hungry kids. It's not essential. Day 4, get rid of mass transit aid. Let New York City do it. Not essential. Cut back on Medicaid and health care. Within 2 weeks, everyone would have been howling. Furthermore, it's even worse.
Oh my God, bro, you are, oh God. Please step aside, dude. Please, just step down. Yeah, people would be howling. You know at who? The fucking Trump admin for refusing to concede. It's crazy because like his own audience, his own base of support don't want this. His own base of support is saying like, fight back as the Trump administration. Meanwhile, you just gave them the legal jurisdiction to be able to do all of those things down the line. And they immediately cut key expenditures from like mental health treatment and shit. What are you talking about? That was in the bill that you allowed to pass through. Pelosi in San Francisco says she has confidence in Schumer as Senate Dem leader, but offers this reflection on the shutdown fight. I myself don't give away anything for nothing. I think that's what happened the other day. Trump said he was ready to negotiate with the Democrats. Understand me? Trump said he was ready to negotiate with the Democrats. 1 day later, Chuck Schumer conceded. A day after Trump said he would negotiate and talk to the Democrats about this deal, Chuck Schumer conceded without any assurances. It's so crazy that he's still actively trying to make it seem like this was the right decision. This was a smart decision. This was the best decision possible. I know better. They have some dirt on Schumer then? No, they don't. They don't have dirt on Schumer. The only reason why Schumer did this and Kirsten Gillibrand did this is because they're close to Wall Street. It's that simple. They're close to Wall Street, and Wall Street was like, don't fuck up the bag. The market is already incredibly volatile with the tariffs. If you actually put up a fight against the shutdown, then the market is going to dive. It's going to nosedive even further. You have to protect it. That's it. And he did it against the wishes of his constituents. He did it against the preservation of future expenditures for incredibly important programs that people rely on. That's it. That is the only reason why he did this. The reason why I did this is because bosses made a boss call and said, if you actually put up a fight, a strong fight that leads to a government shutdown, then people are going to, if you put up a strong fight that leads to a government shutdown, then market volatility is going to cause a major crash. So he said, yes, sir, I'll play ball.
It has no off-ramp. Guess who determines when we leave the shutdown? The Republicans. And let's not forget how bad they are. This guy, Vogt, probably the most evil man. He's the guy who came up with that Project 2025.
Yes.
Yeah, he has a whole playbook of what to shut down. So they had said, one of the Republican senators who knows said to us, you'll be in the shutdown for 6 to 9 months till we totally destroy the federal government. So the shutdown was a much worse alternative. I knew I'd get a lot of flack.
But Senator,
I took some bullets from other people.
And you're still taking bullets, but should you have let people know you're thinking ahead of time? Because really, people thought...
The problem was it came so fast. Hakeem and I had a strategy, which was to try and get a bipartisan bill, which meant in the House, the Republicans would have not been able to pass it. Only at the last minute did it happen that they all voted for it. And so Patty Murray tried to get that bipartisan bill on Wednesday. That's why I said we didn't have the votes yet. They pulled out Wednesday night, and Thursday we had 2 bad choices. But I assure the public, a shutdown would have been the greatest disaster we have to put the government in the sole hands of the evil, nasty, nihilistic people like Musk and Vogt and Trump. Would have been the greatest. We would have had half the federal government we have now. So I thought I did the thing a leader should do. Even when people don't see the danger around the curve, my job was to alert people to it, and I knew I'd get some bullets.
Senator, the leader in question, that is...
He's like, yeah, I fell on my sword bravely. It's not. You flopped. You showed your belly like a coward. There is no honorable way out of this. I don't know why he thinks he's charismatic enough to be able to play this song and dance to make it seem as though he did the right thing, by the way. I don't know who the fuck he's convincing here. Democrats' approval rating is in the dumpster. 29%, dude. 29% approval is crazy. They have a net negative 38% disapproval right now. 38 points in the dumps. They are unimaginably unpopular. Lowest ever. And this fucking dipshit thinks like, nah, you don't understand. I actually did something. I actually did something good. You guys are just too stupid to understand it. And it's funny because that lack of interest in trying to understand where the public is coming from is precisely why the Democrats keep losing. Breaking, Trump has just fired both the Democratic commissioners at the Federal Trade Commission in a potentially illegal move. Nice. Good stuff. Yeah. Well, let's get back to Chuck Schumer. I'm sure he'll have some great takes on this, too.
Is actually what people are debating right now. There are people in your party who don't want you to be a leader in the party anymore. And it's a question of what is this moment and what does it require? I want to ask a question about that moment involving the Venezuelan deportations and the court hearings around it. Put the charges or lack of evidence or whatever against these men aside for now. And let's just talk about the interaction of the Trump administration.
Can you counter his argument as that the government shutdown would accelerate towards more federal cuts? Yes, because government shutdowns are unpopular. When you furlough employees, you immediately accelerate the process. And when you accelerate that process, there is a messaging battle that the Democrats can engage in where they can actively communicate to the population, this is what the Trump administration is doing. That means all of the harm and all the responsibility will be attributed to the Trump administration, okay? And they can't attain that level of unpopularity for too long. People are going to start freaking the fuck out. People are going to start panicking. The market is going to start collapsing. In that process, it is infinitely better for the Democrats to have put up a fight and communicated the real villains here, especially because if you pass this continued resolution, you already give them the legal power to start closing the money faucet on certain expenditures that the government has power over that Congress is giving to the presidency, and the president has already done that. They're doing it with Doge in a slower process, and they're now doing it with the additional authorization that Congress approved. You've basically said, oh, I'm scared that people might yell at me for forcing a government shutdown, which, you know, if done correctly, would obviously, understandably put the blame on Trump. So instead, I'm giving Trump an opportunity to legally do the exact same thing that a shutdown would do in a way that also offers him cover, in a way that offers him shelter and legal protection.
And the court.
Yes.
They seem to take the position that this court doesn't have jurisdiction over them, and you have Tom Homan saying he doesn't care what the judge thinks. What did Democrats do if and when the Trump administration defies a federal judge?
First of all,
yeah, those cuts he's talking about would not be permanent. It forces the party in power to come to the bargaining table and reinstate things that their base would righteously be angry about. Meanwhile, when you go without a fight and offer Trump the opportunity to cut down federal programs, you basically gave him the legal authorization to do so in a longer timeline. And you gave him shelter. You gave him shelter from scrutiny. It's fucked up.
We have to have rule of law. People say, well, that's not me. If we get rid of rule of law, the 248-year tradition in America, this democracy is over, okay? So it's vital to stop it. There are two courts.
How do the Democrats do that?
There are two courts. One is the court of public opinion. And the public has to make, if this happens, they have to make their voices known, Democrats, Republicans, everyone, in the strongest terms, because it's ending our democracy. Now, but we also have the courts. And so far, the lower courts have done a good job. We hope the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court will do the same job. When the lower courts, and I'm very proud that we put in all those judges last year, many of whom are making these decisions, when the lower courts thus far have said to the Trump administration, you must stop, in most cases they have.
But you hear the
they
Trump
don't, that's not my
administration saying
question.
we're not going to pay attention to the court.
If they don't, and we go to the Supreme Court and it is defied, democracy is at real risk, and there will have to be extraordinary action taken.
Tony touched on it, Senator.
And that is by the people, by everybody.
But there are people in your own party that are saying, look, it's time for you to go. They no longer trust your leadership. They want somebody else in there. What do you say about that?
Here's what I say.
In your own party saying
Yes.
you've got to go.
Here's what I'm saying. I'm the best leader for the Senate. We have a lot of leaders. You know, when you don't have a president, there's not one leader of the party. There are lots of them. We have a lot of good people. But I am the best at keep winning Senate seats. I've done it in 2005. Just in 2020, no one thought we'd take back the Senate. Under my leadership, we took it. So we now are executing.
You're not going anywhere.
We have a.
You lost seats. What are you fucking talking about? Best. Why are you the minority leader right now? What does that mean? You were the majority leader. Now you're the minority leader.
Great. We're moving forward. Hakeem and I have a plan. Let me just say this. There's a real contrast between the parties. The Republican Party now, particularly in office, is the party of rich oligarchs who want to really...
Yeah. Democrats learned from the Republicans and they're now lying too. Yeah, but they're lying in the wrong direction. I don't want the Democrats to lie. I want them to earnestly push for genuine changes. Okay? But even if they're going to lie, I want them to lie in the direction of seizing more power. Basically, his argument is that if they shut the government down, then Trump would violate the law. So they decided to change the law to make what Trump is doing legal. That means rule of law is still working. Exactly. Exactly. This way, they preserve the integrity of the institutions as Donald Trump keeps violating them. It's best to play dead, because if we put up a fight, God forbid, then Trump is going to hurt our feelings. Trump is going to violate the norms. We can't have that. Fucking Christ, dude. Coward.
Screw every average American so they can get tax cuts for the rich. And we are fighting that every day. So today, we just issued a statement at 8 o'clock that describes it. Hakeem and I, we have a day of action on Medicaid. In every state, in every corner of the country, Democrats are talking about they're going to Medicaid centers. They're going to people who would be deprived and
Senator, people don't have faith in the Democrats.
Well, let me say this.
And those average Americans.
And we're going to do this day in, day out on issues. Why are they doing tariffs and raising your cost $2,000? It's beginning to work. Why are they taking away Fannie and Freddie and raising your housing costs dramatically? It's beginning to work. His numbers have come down. If we keep at it every day, relentless fighting and showing how they're hurting people so badly, Trump's numbers will get much lower, and his both popularity but also his effectiveness will decline. That, I believe that strategy will work.
May I hold up the book?
Yes.
Yeah, let's get to the
This
book.
is why you were here.
Yes.
Because
News that stays news, anti-Semitism.
Yeah, it's coming out at a time where you said you never thought you'd have to write this book, but you never thought anti-Semitism would be as bad as it is.
Yes.
You said for many non-Jewish people, it's alarming, but it's not a real problem and not a priority. And to that you say...
Yeah, Jewish people, we carry 5,000 years of history on our back. Conor Cruz O'Brien, the great Irish poet, said anti-Semitism is a light sleeper. When things get bad, often, almost in too many societies, it turns on the Jews. You know, I was brought up between 1950, I was born in 1950. For the first 50 years, the Jewish people, we call it the Golden Medina. Jews did great in America. Like everybody else, we were advancing up the ladder. There was very little anti-Semitism because the pall of the Holocaust hung over America, and people realized what could happen. But starting in 2000 with 9/11, a little worse in the financial crisis, where a lot of them accused.
Yeah. When I think of bigotry that was supercharged after 9/11, I think of the Jews did 9/11 conspiracies. Okay? And not fucking Islamophobia that became government mandated so that we could justify the atrocities that we committed over there. That's crazy, dude. I don't know. God damn, dude. That is fucking insane. Progressive, by the way. Progressive Party, by the way. You should be fucking embarrassed. It's crazy. You should be embarrassed to say this.
Jewish financiers, but it got much worse in 2017. So that for the first time, Jewish Americans say, maybe it could happen here. Like it happened.
Yeah, who could forget the first hate crime post 9/11, which was, of course, a Jewish man? Oh, wait, it wasn't. It wasn't even a Muslim man, actually. It was a Sikh person that the psychopath thought was Muslim.
And everywhere else. So I wrote this book. I wrote this book aimed at 5 audiences, and then I'll add a 6th. First, my generation. So they see we're not alone. My experience is often their experience. Second, to my generation's children. They know what's going on, but they didn't know the struggles of Israel, the history of anti-Semitism. You know, they know
the struggles of Israel.
Our holidays. There's a joke about the.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there was post World War II in the United States of America. It was a historic period, according to Chucky here, where there was no anti-Semitism famously. Why? Because we deported Jews as the American government in the same exact way that the Nazis wanted to deport or put Jews into concentration camps for being suspected communists, of course. That's right. But that period was perfect for Jews, according to Chuck Schumer. Now, don't make any inferences on what the American government might do later down the line.
3 words that describe every Jewish holiday. They tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat.
Yes.
So they know about it. But third, it's aimed at non-Jewish people who say, you know, it's bad, but why are they so sensitive? You read this book, you'll see it.
Right.
Finally, I'm aiming it at my left, my people on the left, my friends on the left. I've always been a progressive, but we've always seen anti-Semitism on the right. You saw those people at 9/11, at January 6th wearing shirts that more than 6 million. But now a lot of it's trickled over to the left, and that's bad too.
Yeah, the real fear is the leftist anti-Semitism. Oh my God. Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you for tackling the real issues right now in this day and age. Anti-Semitism coming from the left, which is, of course, having thoughts about Israel, saying Israel is an apartheid state. Because remember, this dipshit told the New York Times, yeah, he thought January 6th is 9/11, by the way, which is a fantastic Freudian slip from Chuck. But this dipshit told the New York Times that the UN anti-Semitically says Israel is doing a genocide. He said the United Nations is anti-Semitic. You're out of your fucking mind, dude. I'm not entertaining this conversation. I hate it. I hate it so much. I fucking hate it so goddamn much. There are varying degrees of fear, some of which comes from an understandable perspective, given Jewish history around the planet okay, given the history of the Holocaust. And then there is the other side of saying that my own personal feelings as someone who is in support of Israel are being hurt, and therefore the genocide should continue and you shouldn't say anything about it. The moment that you move into that territory, the moment that you start chirping about that, you fucking lost me, okay? Fuck you and fuck your feelings. Suck my dick.
I hope every student and every school makes this advisory or required reading. And you know who else should read it? Donald Trump.
I'm sure you're
He has shown, let me just say this.
Yeah, Donald Trump. Hold on, let's finish the Chucky Boy media, the stupid ass takes that he had, because I'm going to show you one more thing from. I'm going to show you a thing that he said on The View too.
He'd do a lot to read it because Donald Trump. Let me just finish this quick point.
How is that different from what Kanye West is saying? Wait, what? Your feelings in defense of Israel being called out is not more important than, one, free speech protections, and two, being able to actively criticize the Israeli government for doing a genocide with our tax dollars is the same as what Kanye West is saying? Stupid? Were you dropped on your head as a baby? You think that's the same? You think falsely conflating Israel's actions with Judaism and then assuming a defensive posture that centers your own personal feelings about Israel's continued genocide is the same as saying that, Kanye West loves Adolf Hitler, just over and over again, repeating that and making swastika merchandise. If my grandmother had wheels, she would be a bicycle. All the years of the left standing against modern neo-Nazis who spewed anti-Semitism throughout the rise of the alt-right, as shit-lips scolded the left for antagonizing the right, now the shit-lips are accusing the left of being anti-Semitic. Yeah.
Point. Donald Trump has shown that he regards Jews as transactional. Oh, they're good for votes, they're good for money. He has no understanding of the Jewish people, and it leads him to do bad things. Sitting down with that when Charlottesville occurred, saying both.
They made it back. Dude, I came right at the... Look at that.
And SpaceX Freedom, splashdown. Good main release.
You guys got to see it.
Copy splashdown. We see main chutes cut. Nick, Alex, Butch, Sunny.
Look at the timing.
On behalf of SpaceX, welcome home.
It is an amazing... What a ride. I see a capsule full of grins ear to ear.
And as you can see on your screen, we have visual confirmation of splashdown. Dragon Freedom has returned home, and NASA astronauts.
System safety verifications are in progress. We'll report back
Dragging
when recovery
these
personnel
nuts.
are en route.
One of them is going to lightly criticize Elon Musk at some point, and Elon's going to throw a fucking fit. Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Especially the ones that came back, because they were already criticizing Elon. And Elon called them the R word. Didn't he?
It's necessary.
He literally said the astronaut in space was like fucking stupid.
In the distance, you can see the recovery vessel making its way.
Copy, you're in Section 2 for the environmental assessment in 4.800. That is not necessary today.
Understand. Raising 5.
So we will continue to have communications between the Corps and Nick Hague, the commander of Crew Dragon Freedom, which just splashed down 2 minutes ago off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Dragon Freedom has returned home with NASA astronauts Nick Hague, Sunny Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov. They're back on Earth after approximately 17 hours of a return journey from space.
The SpaceX recovery ship and team have been waiting for Dragon's splashdown, and they will now make their way to the splashdown location. The teams have been ready and waiting about 3 nautical miles away, so it's going to take them about 30 minutes or so to make their way to...
SpaceX Freedom. Pretty sure we're in Stable 1.
Copy, Stable 1. We see the same.
It's going to take about 30 minutes for the recovery team to make their way over to Nick, Sunny, Butch, and Alexander, who are still seated and secured inside that Dragon spacecraft there on your screen. Incredible views there of that thermal protection system, or TPS. That Dragon capsule was pristine, white color before it departed the station, and we can see how the reentry phase, the thermal protection system did its job. Now, if you're wondering what that hole, that like bucket area is, that is underneath the side hatch. That is where the main parachutes were stored.
This is CGI.
When we saw the Dragon capsule docked at station, it looked very different. The panel that protects and covers the main parachutes, that was still intact, as well as the panels that enclose where the drogue parachutes are located. We can see fast
Freedom.
boats.
SpaceX is go for recovery personnel to approach. Expect personnel alongside in the next few minutes.
Freedom copies.
We can see those fast boats. We weren't kidding when we said they were fast. While it does take about 30 minutes for the main recovery vessel to make its way over to the capsule, these fast boats will be doing a couple of things simultaneously. A couple of them are going to be working to retrieve the parachutes that you see in the background there of this drone shot. Those parachutes will be retrieved from the ocean
Clearly
surface.
flat.
We want to make sure we
The Earth, I mean.
we are able to pull those out. The recovery vessel there closest to the spacecraft is going to be performing some safety checks. We can see there they're using an instrument that is basically working to detect if there are any hypergolic vapors or fumes that are still residing in and or around the Draco thruster nozzles or outlets. The hypergolic fuel, which is necessary for on-orbit burns to maneuver the spacecraft. Unfortunately, those hypergolics are unable to be breathed. They are toxic, and so this team here is doing those initial safety checks to make sure that it is safe for the rest of the recovery team to approach the spacecraft. They're also checking to make sure that any residuals from the pyros are safe and are not going to cause any issues. We can see the team working their way around the spacecraft to do these basically these sniff tests on all of those Draco thrusters.
And as we continue to await the recovery of our Dragon spacecraft with NASA astronauts Nick Hague, Sunny Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov inside, Dragon has autonomously completed several steps to safe itself following splashdown. We are continuing to see Dragon in what is known as Stable 1 configuration. That's kind of the ideal configuration following splashdown. It's upright, and the Dragon capsule is in the right configuration for it to be hoisted into the recovery vessel Megan, which you do see a little ways off in your screen approaching. Dragon will continue to remain live on air with you through that recovery process, all the way through the point where the crew is extracted from the Dragon spacecraft. Now, if you are just joining us, the mission has gone smoothly so far. Dragon successfully splashed down off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida at 2:57 p.m. Pacific, 5:57 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon.
Approximately 17 hours prior to splashdown, Dragon autonomously undocked from the International Space Station, completed a series of departure burns, jettisoned its trunk section, and performed its final burn, the deorbit burn. This placed the
and bring them back down to Earth.
Unfired ordnance checks
This is a successful mission.
Rigging is in progress. Approximately 25 minutes until capsule lift. Stand by for PMC with SpaceX flight surgeon.
And so what we did just hear there was communications that those hypergol checks were complete. They didn't find any of that upon those checks, so we'll continue to move through the timeline. Next up is a process called rigging, which you see happening right now on your screen. This is when a SpaceX recovery personnel actually works to climb aboard the capsule and work through procedures ahead of lifting onto the nest of the recovery vessel Megan. We heard it's going to be about 25 minutes or so until that lift actually takes place.
Okay, Freedom, the next call will be from the SpaceX flight surgeon on Dragon to Ground Private.
Stop the steal.
Understand. Thank you.
Too big to rig.
Callouts there indicating that the crew will have the opportunity to do a quick check-in with the SpaceX flight surgeon. This is standard procedure for every Dragon spacecraft when it returns to Earth. It's just an initial check-in, make sure everybody is doing okay. They will also have another check-in with the flight surgeon once they are on board that recovery vessel that you see there in the background. We can now see that SpaceX recovery team member they're on top of the Dragon spacecraft. They are going to be working to install plugs in the Draco thrusters to ensure that none of those, and to ensure that no more hypergolic fumes or vapors come out from the spacecraft. They'll also place harnessing around the spacecraft that are required in order to lift it out of the water. Go ahead, Sandra.
Continuing to get some views of the recovery personnel, both the main recovery vessel, Megan, as well as some of those fast boats that we've discussed previously. It looks like just a beautiful day there out off the coast of Tallahassee, Florida. Weather was pristine. We were able to get undocked from the International Space Station as expected at 10:05 p.m. Pacific time yesterday evening, and Crew Dragon has since completed steps ahead of its splashdown at 2:57 p.m. Pacific, and we're now stepping through procedures to get Dragon hoisted up onto the Megan recovery vessel and get the crew extracted out of the spacecraft. And you did see some of the parachutes that were near the spacecraft. Upon detection of landing, Dragon automatically releases those main parachutes to prevent wind from pulling the spacecraft. Dragon then automatically safes any pyrotechnics that may still be present on the vehicle and may automatically perform additional minor system reconfigurations. The astronauts will remain seated and in their suits at this point, but the onboard air conditioning keeps things temperature controlled inside the spacecraft so the crew remains comfortable, and the communication systems.
Freedom, SpaceX, ComCheck.
SpaceX, this is Freedom. We loud and clear.
Copy that, Freedom. Have you loud and clear as well, and Dragon to ground is no longer private.
Understand, thank you.
As we saw there on the screen, we have a couple of fast boats in the recovery fleet that have quickly
they better make sure that the astronauts don't have any weird photos on their fucking phones as they're denied entry into the States. You guys don't have anything in their camera roll? Exactly.
Damn, this guy's good.